Chapter 385. P.S. I'm writing too slowly. Maybe I'm at my limit. The more I write, the slower I get. That's why I'm posting it late. Everyone, please forgive me. With such a fast cultivation speed, there would definitely be consequences and risks. He deeply understood that everything in the world was a combination of yin and yang, good and bad. Cultivating a heart technique quickly and powerfully meant a huge risk. The more he could not see this risk, the more dangerous it was. He vaguely felt that the heavenly demonic power was advancing so fast. In the later stages of cultivation, there would definitely be drawbacks. By then, it would be hard not to cultivate. This was in line with the nature of the heavenly demonic. He had been resisting the temptation and did not cultivate it. Unfortunately, he was forced to cultivate. Even if he knew it was poison, he could only drink it. At least it would only harm himself. If he did not cultivate, not only would it harm himself, it would also harm C.O. Schur and the House of Duke. Since he had no other choice, he cast aside all his worries and focused on cultivation. He wanted to cultivate to the third level in the shortest time possible. He first held the little black stone in his hand and let the heavenly demonic energy devour it. When he felt full, he put down the little black stone and began to cultivate the heavenly demonic power. In his mind, he visualized the gigantic heavenly demon. His body began to practice the 36 forms. The heavenly demonic energy in the void entered his body and merged with the heavenly demonic energy in his body. It circulated in his body, changing and strengthening it. When he finished practicing the 36 forms, his body strengthened a little. The heavenly demonic energy was depleted by half. The rest returned to his heart and completely became his. He could circulate it freely without any sluggishness. He then opened his eyes and continued to devour the little black stone's energy. When he felt full, he practiced the 36 forms of the heavenly demonic energy again. This caused the cumbersome heavenly demonic energy to merge with the heavenly demonic energy in the void. It strengthened his body, and the exhausted heavenly demonic energy became his. This way, he progressed very quickly. He felt that the heavenly demonic energy was like a rolling snowball. In just 3 days, it was 10 times more than before. He had not stopped devouring. As he cultivated the 36 forms of the heavenly demonic, his body kept strengthening. The heavenly demonic energy kept increasing as if it was endless. It would keep increasing until he could not take it anymore. As he cultivated, he understood that the body was like a tool. The heavenly demonic energy kept strengthening his body to be able to accommodate more heavenly demonic energy. One day, the heavenly demonic energy could no longer strengthen his body. The heavenly demonic energy in the void could no longer devour other inner energy. 7 days later, he felt that he had reached his limit. The heavenly demonic energy in the void merged with the heavenly demonic energy in his body and circulated within his body. However, his body did not feel strengthened, and it felt like the usual circulation of inner energy. He did not stop devouring the energy in the little black stone and cultivated the 36 forms of the heavenly demonic energy over again. The heavenly demonic energy in his body was slowly being diluted by the heavenly demonic energy in the void. Heavenly demonic energy in his body was gradually being dilated by the demonic energy in the demonic energy in. As the heave. The 72 movements were slow and unhurried. When the enormous body was displayed, it exuded a carefree and unrestrained aura. Chu Li followed the movements and slowly performed the 72 movements. He felt that it was missing some of its charm, so he did it again. The heavenly demonic energy in the void slowly fell and merged with his body. It strengthened his body again. He suddenly had a feeling that he had grown a little taller in an instant, getting closer to the heavenly demon in his mind. It was as if he could break the sky with one punch and penetrate the earth with one step. His mind was clear, but he knew that this was just an illusion of power. It was not the real growth of his body. He had to overcome this illusion. Otherwise, he would easily get lost, and it would not be beneficial to his cultivation. This was the inner demon. He suddenly understood. One level of advancement, one level of inner demon. This was the disadvantage of the heavenly demonic power. The heavenly demonic power progressed rapidly, but the inner demon was also strong. Only by overcoming the inner demon could he achieve such rapid advancement and great power. The 72 movements were performed continuously. Every time he performed it, he looked even more carefree and unworldly. His body was constantly strengthened. The heavenly demonic energy kept circulating. It became faster and more abundant. Finally, the heavenly demonic energy condensed in his heart and condensed into a water droplet. This water droplet was like a drop of ink. It was black and pure, just like the little black stone he obtained. The surrounding light seemed to be completely absorbed by it. With a thought, the water droplet instantly appeared anywhere in his body. His body seemed to be an illusory existence. It did not hinder at all. He tried to pick up the little black stone. The water droplet instantly appeared in his palm. It then changed its shape slightly and formed a small, undetectable whirlpool. It continuously devoured the little black stone's energy. After the energy entered, it slowly formed a fog around it. Chuli quickly let go of the little black stone. This moment of devouring was more powerful than the 10 days of devouring combined. The third level of the heavenly demonic power was amazing. If he cultivated it to the fourth level, what would it be like? He performed the 72 forms again. The heavenly demonic energy in the void was injected into the water droplet. The water droplet circulated along his body and strengthened it. Half of the fog was absorbed into his body and the other half into the water droplet. He tried to integrate the water droplet into his heart according to the heart technique. His heartbeat suddenly became stronger. His blood surged like a torrential river. As his heart swallowed and contracted, it injected turbulent energy into every part of his body. He lightly patted the stone beside him. Pah! The stone turned into powder. It was as if he was patting a piece of tofu. Chuli sighed, just as he expected. With such overbearing physical strength, even if he did not use inner energy, it was already shocking enough. With a thought, the water droplet left his heart and floated above his heart. It was faintly discernible. He smiled. It was like a heavenly demonic power. It was indeed an antique study passed down from the 33 heavens. It was truly amazing. Just as he was feeling happy, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He raised his eyebrows and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in his own courtyard in the imperial residence of King An. He flashed again and appeared in the Tianshu courtyard. In the main bedroom of the Tianshu courtyard, Co Shur was bending over on the bed and vomiting blood. Xueling sat cross-legged behind her and channeled, but to no avail. She could not stop the blood. Yang Su held the spittoon and looked at the black blood that Co Shur vomited. Her face was as white as paper and her hands were trembling. "Master!" Xueling saw him and hurriedly shouted, "Lady Co Shur has been poisoned." Chuli nodded. With a glance, he realized that her internal organs were all poisoned. Her blood was all black. The poison was so strong that it could kill people in 7 steps. Co Shur lifted her head and looked at him. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said weakly, "Why did you come back?" Her beautiful face was covered with a layer of green. Her gaze was dim and her breath was weak. Yet, she pretended to be fine. "I have the spirit blessing pill. I won't die." Chuli shook his head. "I have to get rid of this poison first." Chapter 386. His anger was raging, but he was unusually calm. He focused on the poison in Co Shur's body. The spiritual energy from the plants entered her body and strengthened her life force. Although the poison was strong, under the protection of the spiritual energy, it could not devour her life force. It was like a skin wound. Her body, under the support of the abundant life force, looked brand new. Her internal organs were like a machine with full horsepower, operating nonstop, operating at full speed. It was detoxifying the poison at a speed that was a few times faster than usual. He knew that Shui must have given Co. Sure the antidote pill. It was not effective, and the spirit blessing pill was overkill. Hence, they used the stupid method of using spiritual energy to strengthen her life force and relying on her body's own ability to expel the poison. It would take a few days. Co. Sure straightened her body, and Yang Su quickly handed her a silk handkerchief. Co. Sure wiped the corner of her mouth and looked at Chu Li. I didn't disturb your isolation, did I? Isolation at a time like this. Chu Li glared at her. Suddenly, he had a thought, and the water droplet that was floating in front of his heart suddenly appeared in his palm. An invisible suction force spread out. The poison in Co. Sure's body seemed to have turned into poisonous gas. Strands of it entered his palm and merged with the water droplet. He was secretly surprised. He did not expect the heavenly demonic energy to have such a magical effect. With this, he could be said to be immune to all poisons. After a while, Co. Sure's poison was completely absorbed. The green on her jade face disappeared. Although she was a little pale, there was light in her eyes. She was no longer dull. She looked completely different. She looked at Chu Li in surprise. She did not ask how Chu Li did it. Yang Su let out a long sigh. Her body was limp. Shui Ling wiped the sweat off her forehead. If anything happened to the lady, they would die 100 times. They almost fainted from the shock. Chu Li said, "Both of you go and rest. Relax." He saw that the two women were extremely nervous. Once they relaxed, they were exhausted. Even Shui Ling, who was skilled in martial arts, could not take it. The two women quickly bowed and left. Co. Sure smiled. "Aren't you going to ask who did it?" "There's no point." Chu Li smiled. "I will find out. King and has recovered." Co. Sure said lightly. His entire person changed. "It's like a different person. It's quite scary." Chu Li nodded. He had already seen King and sat quietly in the study room, while Su Ning stood in a corner not far away. He was still easily overlooked. Princeton was dressed in a blue tunic, holding a book and slowly flipping through it. He was full of vigor and determination, like a treasured sword that was unsheathed, showing off its edge. There was a murderous aura that made people afraid to look at him directly, as if he could draw his sword and kill at any time. Has he mastered the Azura power technique? Co. Sure asked. Chu Li shook his head. Just a little bit more. This Azura power technique is really powerful. He has already recovered. He was most aware of the severity of Prince An's injuries. Even if his torso tuning technique was extremely strong and his body was incomparably tough, it would still take him half a month to recover from such severe injuries. You're no match for him? Co. Sure asked. Chu Li smiled. We'll only know after we fight. Do you think it was Kingen who did it? Who knows? Co. Sure scoffed. He came over to ask you, and when he found out that you weren't around, he didn't look too good. Looking for me? Chu Li frowned. Seems like you're confident that you can kill me. Could it be that he wanted to kill me to lure you out? Co. Sure asked. Chu Li scoffed. That's why you haven't crushed the Sarira prayer beads. If it wasn't for her insistence, Shui Ling would have crushed the Sarira prayer beads the moment she found out that she was poisoned and notified him to come back. It wouldn't have dragged on for so long. Anyway, I have a spirit blessing pill. I won't die. Co. Sure smiled. Chu Li shook his head. I'll find out. You should rest. Are you still going back to isolated cultivation? Co. Sure asked. Chu Li said, I still need a while. All right. Co. Sure said helplessly. Just a few days of absence. Co. Sure felt empty. Every day was extraordinarily long, but she knew that he was in isolated cultivation and should not be disturbed. Chu Li once again returned to the formation outside the horse racing town and continued to cultivate the heavenly demonic power. When he reached the 3rd level, his cultivation speed was still extremely fast. The little black stones that he snatched seemed to contain an endless amount of energy, continuously emitting an extremely pure aura for him to devour. After cultivating the 72 forms 4 times, the sky was bright, and he appeared in his own courtyard in a flash. Shui Ling was already waiting for him. After a night of rest, Ling's face was glowing. Any clues? Chu sat by the stone table. Ling brewed tea and passed it over with both hands. Deputy Commander Meng is very suspicious. Meng Ji, Chu muttered. When did he leave the Imperial residence? His mind scanned the entire Imperial residence, but there was no trace of Meng Ji. It was obvious that he had left the Imperial residence. 2 days ago, Ling scoffed. It was that night that the lady was poisoned. Do you know what he wanted to do? It seems like Prince and ordered him to do something. Ling said. Could it be that Prince and ordered Meng Ji to do it? They were already very careful, afraid that someone would poison them, but they still failed to prevent it. Chu shook his head. Prince didn't have to spend so much effort. It should be Meng Ji's doing. All right, I will handle it. Just be careful. He waved his hand after he finished speaking, put down the teacup, and disappeared. Chu appeared in Meng Ji's house and found a few strands of hair in the empty house. The omniscient mirror was put to good use at this time. It could see down to the smallest detail, and he found the hair in one glance. Without the omniscient mirror, it would have taken him a long time to find it. When he returned to his own courtyard, Ling had already left. He activated the all-seeing divine power and quickly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in a lush pine forest. The morning air was especially fresh. Meng Ji sat alone by a bonfire, roasting a wild rabbit on top of the fire. It sizzled with oil, and the aroma filled the air. As he flipped the wild rabbit, he occasionally picked up the wine jug beside him and took a sip. His expression was carefree. Chu suddenly appeared and stood in front of him. Commander Meng, you're in a good mood. Meng Ji looked up at him and said coldly, Head Chief, you're in a good mood too. You really found me. Chu said, You poisoned it, right? Yes, it was me. Meng Ji nodded and flipped the wild rabbit. His expression was firm. Chu said calmly, You think I won't kill you? Yes. Meng Ji looked up at him. You won't kill me because my big brother is Meng Jian, a disciple of Amethyst Mountain. Amethyst Mountain. Chu sighed and shook his head. He originally wanted to enter Amethyst Mountain and step into the Grandmaster's boundary. However, due to coincidence, the one in Amethyst Mountain was in isolation. Before he could meet him, he obtained the Heavenly Demon's inheritance and stepped into the Grandmaster's boundary. As a result, his relationship with Amethyst Mountain was severed. He never thought that he would bump into them again here. Meng Ji looked at him with certainty. Head Chief, you must know about Amethyst Mountain? I've heard of it but never seen it, Chu said. Meng Ji said, Amethyst Mountain is the same as Green Deer Cliff. Their disciples rarely come out into the world. Without a high cultivation level, they can't leave the mountain. My big brother has already left the mountain. This time I'm going to see him. Chu smiled. If I kill you now, who will know? My big brother will know. Meng Ji looked at him proudly. My big brother will avenge me. So I can't kill you? You will still come after me in the future, right? Chu said calmly. That's right. Just like His Royal Highness. You know that His Royal Highness will come after you. But you can't do anything and can only endure it. I'm the same. You can't do anything. You're different from His Royal Highness. Your big brother is different from the Emperor. I've always bullied the weak and feared the strong. Chu sighed. You think you can defeat my big brother? All right. Even if you could defeat my big brother, there's still everyone in Amethyst Mountain. Even His Royal Highness doesn't dare to offend Amethyst Mountain, Meng Ji said proudly. Chapter 387. Chu smiled. How do you know that His Royal Highness would not dare to offend Amethyst Mountain? Looks like the head chief still doesn't know how powerful Amethyst Mountain is. Meng Ji smiled proudly and said, Among the 4 major sects, the Tempest Temple is the leader. The other 3 sects are the Titanium Temple, the Amethyst Mountain, and the Green Deer Cliff. Among the 3 sects, the Amethyst Mountain is the most mysterious. Even the Royal Highness has to be careful when facing the Amethyst Mountain. If you offend the Amethyst Mountain, don't even think about having it easy. The Amethyst Mountain has an enlightened master? Chu asked. Although there aren't any, there are plenty of grandmasters. Meng Ji said. Head chiefs should understand that although they are both grandmasters, there is a huge difference between them. The grandmasters of the Amethyst Mountain are different from the grandmasters of the martial arts world. Chuli nodded. Acquired stage, innate stage, grandmaster stage, and enlightened master stage were just like people of different ages. Acquired stage were babies, innate stage were children, grandmasters were youths, and enlightened masters were in their prime. In a battle between martial arts masters, it was very difficult to skip levels. It was like a baby wanting to beat up a child wanting to beat up a youth, and a youth wanting to beat up a middle-aged man. There was almost no chance of winning. However, as a youth, everyone's martial arts cultivation method, level of attainment in their martial arts, as well as their respective cultivation, would affect their strength. The difference was like heaven and earth. In the eyes of the grandmasters from the four major sects, the grandmasters from the normal sects were very weak and could not even withstand a single blow. Therefore, the people of the martial arts world feared the four major sects and did not dare to provoke them. Meng Ji knew all these, so he was sure that Chuli wouldn't dare to kill him. Once Chuli killed him, his big brother would definitely avenge him. Although Chuli was mighty in front of him, he was nothing in front of his big brother. When he thought of this, he stared at Chuli excitedly. Head chief, the situation is more important than the person. If you offend the Amethyst Mountain, you might even implicate the High Duke's public house. Why do you have to do this? It's not a big deal for you to suffer a little. Chuli sighed. I won't kill you myself. It'll be the same if I send someone over. Then Big Brother will look for you too. Meng Ji laughed. Don't even think of hiding it from my big brother. Even if I don't kill you, you'll tell your big brother and let him deal with me, right? Chuli shook his head and looked at the hair on the shelf. The sizzling oil kept coming out and dripping onto the fire, making pa-pa sounds. The fragrance was alluring. Yes. Meng Ji looked at his helpless expression and became even more excited. Chuli thought about it and shook his head helplessly. Everyone had a weakness, but when it came to someone as selfish as Meng Ji, there was nothing that could be used. It was useless to use his family. It was also useless to use his lover. What he cared about was only power and status. Looks like I have no choice but to kill you. Chuli shook his head. What's the name of the person you sent? Don't even think about finding out. Meng Ji looked at him with a smile, as if he was enjoying every trace of helplessness on Chuli's face. If I die, he will find my big brother and tell him that you killed me. Chuli asked, where does he live? Do you think I will tell you? Meng Ji chuckled. Head chief, unless you become an enlightened master. Otherwise, it's better for you to behave yourself, lest you implicate the princess and make her suffer. Chuli squinted his eyes as he thought of Co. Shi's agony when she was poisoned. Her face was pale with a layer of green, but her expression was very calm, as if she did not feel anything. Chuli knew that she was in great pain. The poison was wreaking havoc in her internal organs and even her blood. It would be strange if she was not in pain, but she did not complain at all. Actually, you shouldn't have said so much. Chuli sighed and lightly pointed his finger. The spear finger strike was fast and silent. Meng Ji was alarmed and quickly retreated, but he did not manage to avoid the spear finger strike. His shoulder was hit. No matter where the spear finger strike hit, the arteries of the heart would break and the person would die immediately. Chuli gave him 2 more finger strikes to make sure that it was safe. He pointed with his right hand while his left hand grabbed the hair and slowly placed it on the shelf. Then, he dug a hole and buried Meng Ji in it. The Tempest Temple and the Amethyst Mountain were enemies, so it was impossible for Meng Jian to find the murderer. The spear finger strike was a secret of the Tempest Temple. Only direct disciples could learn it. Other than the disciples of the Tempest Temple, no one else could cultivate it. Chuli was not in a hurry to leave. He sat at the side and waited for a long time. No one came. After such a long delay, even if there were miraculous pills, there was no way to save Meng Ji. Only then did he feel relieved and disappeared again, appearing in a gambling house in the fairy's capital. No one in the fairy's capital would care about the death of a gambling addict. He returned to the outskirts of the horse racing town and continued his cultivation. He thought that the energy in the little black stone was endless and could support his cultivation for a long time. He did not expect that after 10 days, the little black stone suddenly lost its energy and turned into dust. The water droplet above his heart had become half the size of his heart. It could be called a water ball. It was faintly discernible, as if it existed in his body, but also as if it existed in another void. It gave him a very strange feeling. The water ball in such a state could not be felt by others. Unfortunately, it only reached the 3rd level. The little black stone could not help him to break through to the 4th level. That night, he returned to the imperial residence of King An. The lanterns were lit, and he sat at the stone table in the Tianshu courtyard. The courtyard was brightly lit as if it was daytime. Sure covered herself with a thin blanket and leaned on the couch. She smiled and looked happy. Yangsu and Ling sat at the side, the 4 of them chatting and laughing. "You're finally back," Sure smiled. "If you didn't come back, I would have been annoyed to death by Lung Xiao." Chuli smiled. "Why did she annoy you?" "She came every morning and afternoon to ask when you're coming back." "Did you forget about the hunting ceremony?" Sure's jade-like face looked even whiter under the light, exuding a warm glow. "The hunting ceremony." Chuli smiled. She still remembers. "She talks about it every day. How could she forget?" Sure said. "It's just a few days." "How many more days?" Ling. 3 days. Ling smiled. "These 2 days, Miss Chiu is going crazy." Chuli sighed. "It's not bad to be carefree. How's the imperial residence of King Cheng?" "It's finally quietened down." Ling said. "Ever since those 3 people came, the imperial residence of King Cheng didn't gain any benefits. Now, the people in the residence dare to go out." Chuli was surprised. Although Lu Xing and the other 2 people's martial arts were strong, it was not enough to make Chen Kong fearful. It seemed that King had made a move and overpowered Chen Kong. Otherwise, with King Cheng's temper, he would not let it go. He would beat King and until his face was covered in dirt. King An's aura was eerie. It was indeed different from before. His body contained a tyrannical power, which made him very afraid. "They are also respectful to me." Sure pursed her lips and smiled. "It's because of you, right? Everyone is saying that the head chief is broad-minded." If King had heard this, he would definitely be angry. Chuli shook his head and smiled. He looked to the west and suddenly said, "All right, it's getting late. I should go back and rest. You guys should sleep early too." "So early?" Ling was surprised. Sure frowned and looked at him. Chuli smiled and shook his head. He stood up and walked out. "When Miss Chiu comes tomorrow, tell her not to worry. I will make time." After he said this, he was already out of Tianshu courtyard. His body suddenly sped up and returned to his own courtyard. As soon as he closed the courtyard door, a shadow floated down from the top of the wall. It was as graceful as a leaf and silent. It was King An. Chapter 388. "Your Royal Highness, you're finally here." Chuli closed fist saluted. King An's gaze was cold as he looked at him, as if he was looking at a dead man. "Chuli, today is the day you die." Chuli smiled. "Your Royal Highness cultivated the Azura power technique, so you can kill me? You know about the Azura power technique too?" King An frowned. Chuli said, "I've heard from others that cultivating this technique requires one to go through inhumane torture. I'm impressed that your Royal Highness is able to endure it." He had already looked through the omniscient mirror. King An's appearance had completely changed. His face and limbs looked no different from a normal person, but the body that was covered by his clothes was covered with sarcomas like pigeon eggs. It was so ugly that no one dared to look at it. These sarcomas contained a strong power. His muscles and bones had already changed. His muscles were thicker, his bones glowed like jade, as if they had turned into white jade. The texture was no different from jade. Through these changes in his body, he could guess that King An's strength was extraordinary, not something that could be compared to a normal person. It could be imagined that such a change in his body was not a comfortable thing. It was enough to make a person wish they were dead. King An was expressionless. His emotions did not fluctuate at all. He was not as agitated as before. In the past, every time King An saw him, He could not hide the disgust in his heart, as if he was looking at his natural enemy. He wanted to kill him, but he held back his impulse, pretending to be calm. This was the work of the imperial residents. Now, the calmness was different, as if he was looking at a stranger. His cold gaze contained a faint killing intent. King said coldly, "I have to thank you, Chu Li, for me to persevere." Chu Li said, "Your Royal Highness persevered because of your hatred towards me, right?" "Your Royal Highness, there's something I don't understand. What kind of hatred do we have between us? Do we have to fight to the death? My heart's blood and sweat has been destroyed by you. How can I not hate you?" King said coldly. Chu Li shook his head. "Your Royal Highness, what you said is not true. Although I killed 10 martial arts masters, I entered the imperial residence. I could be considered as a few martial arts masters. The imperial residence's strength did not weaken too much. It's not enough for your Royal Highness to hate me so much." His Qin Gong was peerless, and his cultivation was profound. Just like Chen Kong, it could be said that he alone was equivalent to 10 people. Prince frowned. "Why are you asking so many questions? Today is the day you die. Don't worry, I will send the second lady to accompany you." Chu Li smiled. "Royal Highness, are you that confident?" King was not angered by his delay. He spoke to him calmly, not in a hurry. Chu Li was behaving like this? Gather. Aperture, Miss Champagne, Taruka, Jie Quan, or Meal Acidity, Oyster Jus. Alter the D model. Crack Dark, or CC Male Tiller Fight. Awesome. Provoke Ping, and from Xian City. Eighth price of cultivating this technique was too high, so he didn't want to cultivate it. Prince said, "Do you have an affair with the second lady?" Chu Li was startled and laughed. "Your Royal Highness, you're wrong. There's nothing between me and the second lady. Don't lie to yourself." Prince said coldly, "Forget it. It doesn't matter if you have a personal relationship or not. Today, you're going to die together." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step in front of Chu Li and punched him in the chest. Chu Li turned to dodge and punch him lightly. He realized that when Prince said those words, he was still calm. It was as if he was talking about someone else's business, and it had nothing to do with him. He was really indifferent. This was definitely not normal. It was probably caused by cultivating the Azura power technique. The Azura power technique really changed one's temperament. It only knew how to kill and destroy human emotions. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Prince N's chest was punched. It was the Liu clan's fist force. It was so pure that it hit him like a hammer. Prince was unaffected. He took another step forward. His speed was fast, and his attack was also fast. Another punch came close. Chu Li's omniscient mirror was constantly activated. His fist force could not enter Prince N's body at all. His skin and flesh were extremely tough. It could resist the invasion of inner energy. No matter how strong his inner energy was, it would not be able to enter his body. Prince N's speed was so fast that Chu Li could not avoid it. He punched Prince N's fist. Bang! Both of them retreated. Thud, thud, thud. Chu Li took 4 steps back in one breath. Prince N only took 1 step back. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He took another step forward and punched again. Chu Li frowned. His fist felt slightly numb. Prince N's bones were hard beyond imagination. His fist felt like it was hitting iron. Chu Li took a step sideways to avoid it. He turned around and attacked Prince N's right rib. Prince N's body technique was extremely fast. His arm twisted as if it had no bones. He turned at an impossible angle like a snake. Their fists collided. Chu Li felt his fist go numb again. However, his body cultivation was successful. The heavenly demonic power had continuously tempered his body. It was extremely strong. He had not tested how strong it was. So, he decided to let go and fight him head-on. Bang, 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 bang. A series of muffled sounds traveled far in the night sky. Xueling took a glance and turned back to Tianshu Courtyard. The masters in the imperial residence seemed to be deaf. They did not hear anything. No one came to investigate. In the blink of an eye, Chu Li's fist was numb. However, his blood was boiling. The feeling of fighting head-on was especially refreshing. Prince N's face darkened. He had already experienced the strength of his body. He wanted to use his body to crush Chu Li. He did not expect that the result was not what he expected. Chu Li's body was not weaker than his. Very good. No wonder you made me suffer so much, Princeton said coldly. He thought that he could easily kill Chu Li. It was a waste of his talent. Now, it seemed that Chu Li had hidden his strength well. His strength was far beyond his imagination. He could even fight to a draw with him. He was a genius. Chu Li sighed. Your Royal Highness, why do we have to fight to the death? If we work together, your Royal Highness's ambition will not be difficult to achieve. To deal with Princeton, he had to first dispel his will. Then he would have a chance. Princeton was unmoved. He looked at him coldly. His eyes suddenly turned red. His clothes fluttered. His loose robe became tight-fitting. His whole body expanded. Chu Li was like a child in front of him. Chu Li only reached his shoulder. He took a big step forward. Chu Li did not even have time to react. Bam! Chu Li flew out and crashed into the wall. Blood gushed out of his mouth, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Princeton did not give him a chance to react. He took another big step forward. It was as if several Prince ANS appeared at the same time. His body movement technique was so fast that several shadows appeared. He threw a punch. His fist was so fast that it could not be seen. This time, Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to predict his movements. He turned his head in advance. Bam! A fist hole appeared on the wall beside him. Bam! 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 For punches in a row, the shadow of the fist could not be seen. It was as if the wall exploded on its own. These 4 holes were on the left and right of Chu Li's head. He dodged it by a hair's breadth. It was extremely thrilling. Princeton's speed was a few times faster. He could no longer be seen with the naked eye. If it was not for the omniscient mirror, the warning of a grandmaster would be useless. As soon as the warning came, the fist was already there. There was no time to react. Bam! Chu Li finally could not avoid the punch. Chapter 389. Chu Li raised his head and looked at Prince, and Prince Anne's eyes were bloodshot, and his gaze was cold. His face became bony, and he did not look like a human. He looked more like a skeleton. He stared at Chu Li without a trace of emotion. There was only murderous intent. He punched again. Chu Li sighed and felt helpless. He really did not want to use the heavenly demonic power. The water ball hovering above his precordium fell and entered his heart. His heartbeat became slow and heavy. The blood in his body seemed to have turned into a raging river. He could faintly hear the sound of rushing and whistling. Endless power filled every inch of his body. Chu Li reached out and easily grabbed his fist. Bang! Chu Li's body broke through the wall and entered the house. He held onto Prince Anne's fist and did not let go. He pulled forward. Prince Anne's huge body crashed into the hole with a bang and widened the hole. Chu Li pulled Prince in and leaped out again. His body was so fast that his shadow could not be seen. Prince Anne's struggle was futile. In front of Chu Li, he was like a child facing a strong adult. His wrists felt like they were bound by an iron hoop. He could not break free no matter what. He was dragged out again. The hole widened again, and the wall almost collapsed. Chu Li suddenly flung Prince, and bang, he crashed into the courtyard wall. He took a step forward, and his fist collided with Prince Anne's face. Prince Anne tumbled and flew into the night sky. Chu Li leaped up and punched his face again. Prince Anne's falling body rose again. Chu Li waited for him to fall and punched again. 3 punches. Prince Anne rose and fell 3 times. He finally reacted. His body stopped in the air and slid a little. He barely avoided Chu Li's fist. His right fingernail slashed at Chu Li's pulse. His fingernail grew longer. It was almost the length of a finger. It glowed coldly. Chu Li countered with his fist. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Prince Anne's arm was sent flying, and his body spun. Chu Li punched his face again. Prince Anne tumbled and flew out again, landing outside the wall. Chu Li's speed was so fast that his shadow could not be seen. At first glance, it seemed like Prince Anne was moving on his own. Chu Li did not chase after Prince Anne as he disappeared. A water ball quickly appeared above his heart, and the feeling of boundless strength disappeared in an instant. A strong sense of hunger came from his body, and he felt like he could swallow an entire cow. He let out a long sigh of relief and looked down at his white robe. It was still spotless, as if he wasn't the one who had been smashed into the wall. The power of the heavenly demonic power was indeed amazing. However, the water ball had entered the heart and used his physical strength. It was truly amazing that his body could reach such a level. He realized that even with the omniscient mirror, he could not completely discover the mysteries of the human body. Kingen sat motionless in the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron. His body returned to its original size, and his face was still handsome without any signs of being beaten. However, his heart was surging with anger and killing intent. Originally, he thought that after cultivating the Azura power technique, even if he had to endure inhumane pain, as long as he could kill Chu Li and get rid of his inner demons, it would be worth it. He never thought that even after cultivating the Azura power technique, he still could not defeat Chu Li. Chu Li had also cultivated a mystical skill similar to the Azura power technique, possessing inhuman strength and speed. What kind of mystical skill did he cultivate? At this moment, other than endless killing intent and endless anger, the strongest question in his heart was this. He really wanted to know what kind of mystical skill Chu Li cultivated to be able to defeat him with the body of Azura. He cultivated the Azura power technique and transformed into the body of Azura. At first, he thought that other than the enlightened masters, no one in the Grandmaster's boundary could defeat him. He thought that he would first kill Chu Li, then take care of Lu Yuro. From then on, he would rule the world, and the throne would not be far away. He never thought that he could not even take the first step. Chu Li was stronger than him. It was all that bastard's fault for stealing the heart of Azura. Otherwise, with the heart of Azura and the body of Azura, he would definitely be able to kill Chu Li. Endless anger and killing intent surged in his body, becoming more and more intense, turning into boiling, killing intent. He wanted to rush out of the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron and start a massacre. Amba Buddha. A Buddhist chant rang in his ears. As the Buddhist chant entered his ears, his heart suddenly calmed down. The boiling, killing intent stopped for a moment, then immediately surged again. Amba Buddha. Another Buddhist chant rang. His heart calmed down again. The boiling, killing intent calmed down a little, as if a bowl of cold water was added to boiling water. As I have heard, there was a time when the Buddha was in the kingdom of Shi Wei. The peaceful chanting of scriptures slowly rang. As the scriptures circulated in his ears, the killing intent slowly subsided and gradually returned to peace. Thank you, revered sir. Princeton sat in the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron and bowed with pressed palms. Outside the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron, Su Ning bowed with pressed palms in return and calmly advised, Your Highness, please calm down. Yes, I have lost my composure. Princeton nodded and said, I fought with Chu Li just now and lost to him again. My heart is filled with hatred. That was close. He knew that if Su Ning did not suppress his killing intent with the scriptures, he would have rushed out of the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron and started a massacre. If no one stopped him, he would have killed everyone in the imperial residence, including the two princesses and his two daughters. The backlash of the Azura power technique was so strong that it was beyond his expectations. Su Ning said, Your Highness, there is no hurry to take revenge. Don't let hatred blind your wise eyes. Don't you feel that ever since you met almsgiver Chu, Your Highness's heart has not been able to calm down? Your heart has been covered in dust, and your original wisdom has been thrown away? Princeton frowned and thought for a while. He slowly said, Revered sir, I am also puzzled. Why is that? If the heart is not calm, the mind will not be clear and wisdom will not appear, Su Ning said gently. Your Highness's heart has been lost. Naturally, you have no wisdom. Wisdom? Princeton came out of the Nine Dragons tripod cauldron and landed in front of Su Ning. He sat on the cattail hassock and said, I don't want wisdom now. I only want martial arts and kill Chu Li. Sigh. Su Ning bowed with pressed palms in front of him and said no more. He was obsessed and could not understand. Even if he was eloquent, it would be of no use. He could only watch as he continued to be obsessed. "Revered sir, what martial arts does Chu Li cultivate?" Princeton said in a low voice. "Why is it so powerful?" To be able to be mentioned in the same breath as the Azura power technique, it must be an antique martial art. "I have never heard of it." Su Ning said. "Almsgiver Chu was born with wisdom and profound dermic base. I heard that he is a person with innate wisdom. I believe he cultivates Buddhist martial arts." "What a pity." Princeton shook his head. Since it was Buddhist martial arts, it was hopeless for him. He had never been fated with dermic base and could not get into the Buddhist scriptures. Ever since he started cultivating this Azura power technique, he advanced extremely quickly. If he continued to cultivate like this, he might even reach enlightened mastery's boundary. "Revered sir, I want to cultivate in isolation," Princeton said in a low voice. "After cultivating for a while, I believe I could defeat Chu Li." "Revered sir, please protect me." He had confidence in the Azura power technique again. After all, he had only cultivated for a short 10 days, while Chu Li might have cultivated for 2 to 3 years. How could he compare? With his current advancement, it would not be long before he would surpass Chu Li. It would not be too late to kill him then. "All right," Su Ning bowed with pressed palms. Chapter 390. Your Royal Highness, the trivial matters should be dealt with first. It's not too late to go into isolated cultivation when you have nothing to worry about. Otherwise, you won't be able to calm down if there are too many things to worry about. Su Ning pressed his palms together. Kingen smiled faintly. "It's nothing much. Let them be." Su Ning said, "Could it be that your Royal Highness has been influenced by the Azura power technique and forgotten about your imperial ambitions?" He sighed to himself. The Azura power technique's influence on one's temperament was beyond imagination. In such a short time, Kingen seemed to have changed into a different person. He became indifferent to the matters of the imperial residence. His heart was only focused on cultivation. He only wanted to kill Chu Li. He only wanted to cultivate. If this went on, he would become a top-notch master. He might even be able to kill Chu Li. However, he no longer desired the throne. Instead, he pursued killing and pursuing power. Su Ning did not know if this was a good or bad thing for Kingen. However, he knew that if this continued, Kingen would only become a slave to the Azura power technique and a master of killing. "Your Royal Highness, I have a request." Su Ning pressed his palms together and said solemnly. Kingen turned to look at him. "Revered sir, please speak." "Your Royal Highness, please spend 4 hours a day reciting the scriptures. Once in the morning and once in the morning," Su Ning said. 4 hours? Kingen frowned. His time was limited. How could he have so much time to recite scriptures? Su Ning said, "If your Royal Highness does not want to become a person who only knows how to kill, then recite the scriptures for 2 hours in the morning and the night to suppress your thoughts of killing." Kingen thought about it. He still had lingering fears from the scene earlier. He almost lost his life. Although the Azura power technique was extremely powerful and could advance quickly, it did have its drawbacks. It needed the Buddhist Dharma to resolve it. It seemed like he could only spend 4 hours. "All right, I agree," Kingen said in a low voice. "Ba. Very good, very good." Su Ning pressed his palms together. Kingen said, "I want to restore Chu Li's position as head chief." Su Ning looked at him calmly. Kingen said, "Before you kill him, make good use of his talents. Since he wants it, I will fulfill his wish." "Has your Royal Highness let go of his grudge?" "Humph. I just want to see him work for nothing and die in agony and unwillingness." Kingen sneered. "No matter how popular he is, he will still die by my hands. When that time comes, he will definitely be very unreconciled. He will feel that all his hard work has gone down the drain, and he will die with endless regrets." "Isn't your Highness worried that he will harm the manor?" Su Ning asked curiously. Princeton chuckled. "What's there to damage the imperial residence? As long as I'm here, the imperial residence will be here. If I'm not here, the imperial residence will not be here either. Chu Li can do whatever he wants." Su Ning nodded slowly and remained silent. Princeton's temperament was becoming colder and colder. He did not even care about his own wife and daughter. Of course, this was due to the influence of the Azura power technique, but if not for the selfishness and coldness in his bones, the Azura power technique would not have been able to change him so quickly. The most ruthless was the Imperial family. Those who came from the Imperial family were usually indifferent to kinship and selfish. This was a habit that could not be changed. Kingen said, "I'll go inform them and return immediately to go into isolated cultivation. Please wait for a moment, revered sir." "Your Highness, please go ahead." Suning pressed his palms together and bowed. It was early in the morning. The sun was bright, and the air was especially fresh. After Chu Li finished cultivating, he came to Tianshu courtyard. Xueling was cultivating in the courtyard. Yang Su and Xiao Shi sat at the side and watched as if they were watching a dance. Xiao Shi sat on the low couch. She was dressed in a bluish-white gown that made her whole body look like white jade. Only her hair and eyes were black. Xiao Shi gave him a sidelong glance and smiled faintly. "Congratulations, head chief." Chu Li smiled. "What's there to congratulate?" Xiao Shi smiled. "Isn't a promotion worth congratulating?" Sister Song and Sister Shui couldn't wait to rush over to say that Prince and had already restored your position. Not only did you regain your position, but you also have more power. It's all for naught. Chu Li smiled. Once Princeton comes out of isolated cultivation, he'll immediately take it back and remove my position as head chief. That might not be the case. Xiao Shi scoffed. You're rank 1. If he does this again, the chancellors of the Imperial Court will not agree. They'll definitely force him to acknowledge you as the head chief. Although Prince and was a royal highness, his rank was not as high as Chu Li's. Even in the Imperial residence, he could not do as he pleased. Otherwise, where would the strict rank be? The foundation of the Imperial Court would be shaken. This was something the chancellors would not allow. Even the emperor would not allow it. If it was in the House of High Dukes, their position was superior. The House of High Dukes' rank was also very high. The other chancellors could not comment on it, and the House of High Dukes would not care. However, the imperial residence was in the fairy's capital. It was under the watchful eyes of all the chancellors. The Royal Highness rank was not high enough. The imperial residence was not as superior as the House of High Dukes. Princeton could not suppress Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. In the end, this is still Prince An's imperial residence. Xueling stopped cultivating and said, "Master, Elder Chue from the Jiangchuan Alliance has also come to the fairy's capital." "Oh," Chu Li smiled. He initially thought that Elder Chue was going to Chongming Town. He did not expect him to come to the fairy's capital. Xueling said he sent a message. "He wants to meet you, Master." That's good too." Chu Li nodded. "It must be something important. Did something happen at the Jiangchuan Alliance?" Xueling frowned. "It seems like a top-notch master has appeared. His martial arts is extremely high. He likes to eat human brains and has caused chaos in the Li River. The House of High Dukes didn't make a move. We haven't been able to find this guy. He comes and goes like a ghost. His light body technique is excellent." Chu Li thought for a while. Could it be that he has news about this guy? "I don't think so." Xueling shook her head lightly. She took the towel from Yang Su and wiped off the sweat on her forehead. "If it's this news, Elder Chue can just tell me directly. We'll know when we go and take a look." Chu Li said. After breakfast, he brought Xueling out of the imperial residence. Walking in the imperial residence, the scribes and maids along the way bowed respectfully and called him head chief. Chu Li nodded. His expression was calm. He could feel the respect in their hearts. His popularity was indeed not bad. The two of them walked along the streets of the fairy's capital for half an hour and arrived at a small restaurant by the street. There were only 10 tables in the small restaurant. They were all polished and spotless. Although it was a little old, it was filled with a warm atmosphere. The waiter came to welcome them. When he saw it was Xueling, his smile became wider and he served them tea. Chu Li glanced at the restaurant. In a fairy's capital, small restaurants like this could be seen everywhere. Many wealthy people would also come to these small restaurants to try out the food. This was because these small restaurants usually had their own unique skills. Otherwise, they would not be able to survive in the fairy's capital. Elder Chue quickly appeared. He wiped his hands clean and closed fists saluted with a smile. Head Chief. Chu looked at him and smiled. Elder Chue, you're getting stronger. It seems like you're living a good life. Chapter 391. Elder Chue, why did you ask me to come over? It's not me. It's the head chief invited by the young alliance leader. Elder Chue's chubby face suddenly became serious. Head chief, please wait. Chu nodded. After a while, Han Fei opened the door curtain and entered the restaurant, appearing in front of Chu Li. Chu Li looked at him in surprise and smiled. Brother Han, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Han Fei's face was pale and his body was weak. He waved his hand and sat opposite him. Don't mention it. Elder Chue carefully supported him. Chu Li reached over and put his hand on his wrist, frowned, and said, such an overbearing inner energy. Who did this? He channeled spiritual energy into Han Fei's body. He felt his body warm up, and his face instantly brightened up. Han Fei sighed. I don't know his name. He's a powerful guy. Only one person? Brother Chu, you entered the imperial residence. You might not know, but recently a devil appeared beside Li River. He likes to eat human brains and killed many people. I want to take care of him, but I was beaten up and almost lost my life. Han Fei shook his head and sighed. If it wasn't for Young Yin and the others who risked their lives to save me, my brain would have been eaten too. What about them? They're heavily injured. Han Fei smiled bitterly. Thanks to the spirit blessing pill, Brother Chu. Otherwise, Young Yin would have died. Likes to eat human brains? Chu Li frowned. Did he cultivate some evil technique? Must be. Han Fei felt himself soaked in warmth and felt much more comfortable. He sighed, this guy's body technique is too fast and his claw technique is strange. I'm really not his opponent. Brother Han, if you're not his opponent, then he must have eaten many people, right? Chu Li knew that Han Fei's light body technique was outstanding and not comparable to ordinary people. If he said that his opponent's body technique was fast and he was not his opponent, it showed how powerful this person was. There are more than 20. Fortunately, he only likes to eat the brains of martial arts masters and doesn't care about ordinary people. The High Duke's public house was dispatched, but they couldn't find him. This guy is unusually cunning. Once there are many people, he won't appear at all, and his body technique is extremely fast. It's very difficult to catch him. Chu Li frowned as he listened. As such, this person was truly troublesome. Moreover, the High Duke's public house liked to eat human brains, which created a very bad influence. If the public house could not quickly subdue the High Duke's public house, its original prestige and deterrence would disappear once again, and the people in the martial arts world would become restless again. Chu Li looked at Han Fei's meridian and smiled. Fortunately, I have his inner energy. Han Fei's injuries were not light, and he had not been able to expel his opponent's inner energy. With his domineering inner energy, Chu Li could use the all-seeing divine power to find the other party. As soon as he thought of it, he directly sensed the inner force and activated the all-seeing heaven and earth divine art. A moment later, he let go and smiled. Master, have you found him? Xueling hurriedly asked. Chu Li said, yes, I'll go over now. Wait for me at the public house. Be careful, Master, Xueling hurriedly said. Chu Li smiled and said, don't worry, I'll be right back. Brother Han, I'll go and deal with this guy so that no one else gets hurt again. With Brother Chu taking action, there won't be any problems. Han Fei smiled and said, but be careful of his claw technique. It's really invincible. You have to prevent him from running away when he sees that the situation is not good. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Suddenly, he disappeared. Han Fei let out a sigh of relief and sighed. Let's hope it goes smoothly. This guy really deserves to die, Xueling said. Master Han, what does that person look like? He looks quite good. He looks like he's in his 40s. Han Fei shook his head and said, looking at his face, no one would think that he's such an evil person. Why does he want to eat human brains? Xueling frowned and said, this is too strange. Some people like to eat pig brains and other animals' brains, but no one likes to eat human brains. Elder Chue chuckled at the side. I guess human brains are more delicious. Elder Chue. Han Fei glared and shouted, Can't you let people eat? Elder Chue hurriedly smiled and said, Master, I'm just saying. I guess this guy's taste is special. I've never tried it before. Get lost. Han Fei waved his hand. Elder Chue chuckled and closed fists saluted before bidding farewell to Shuai Ling sighed and said, Maybe what Elder Chue said is true. That guy's taste is special. There's no such thing. Han Fei shook his head. I guess that guy is cultivating some kind of evil technique and needs human brains. But with Brother Chu, there's definitely no problem. I hope so. Shuai was a little worried. Chu Li appeared in a forest in a flash and saw his target. Other than him, there were 5 monks. He recognized one of the 5 monks. It was the young genius from the Tempest Temple, Fa Yuan. He almost killed him last time. At this moment, the 5 of them surrounded a handsome middle-aged man with a solemn face. Chu Li sighed secretly. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Such a handsome man. Who would have thought that he was such an evil person who liked to eat human brains? Chu Li's figure was hidden in the forest. He activated the scripture of life and death so that no one could sense him. Fa Yuan brought 4 middle-aged monks and surrounded the handsome middle-aged man. He pressed his palms together and sighed. Brother Fa Hung, follow us back to the temple. The handsome middle-aged man smiled faintly and shook his head. Fa Yuan, why did you come to die? Brother Fa Hung, you've already entered the path of evil. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you'll be saved. You need the Dharma to eliminate it. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape death. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and sighed. Brother, if you continue to be stubborn, under karma, it'll be hard to turn back. The handsome middle-aged man laughed. Since I've cultivated this technique, I don't care about karma. Fa Yuan, go back. I won't kill you today. Fa Yuan sighed. Why bother? Fa Hung shook his head and smiled. Fa Yuan, what's so hard about it? I feel free and unfettered. I can kill whoever I want. That's true happiness. Come to think of it, the days of chanting in the temple are miserable beyond words. Brother Fa Hung, it looks like we can only take you back. Fa Yuan shook his head. I really didn't think that Brother Fa Hung would come to this step. If I knew, I wouldn't have let you cultivate this technique, no matter what. There's no point in talking. Let's just do it. Fa Hung smiled. Since we're from the same sect, I won't kill you, as long as you keep me here. As soon as he finished speaking, he flashed and appeared 20 feet away in an instant. About Buddha. 5 Buddhist chants sounded at the same time. 4 monks flew into the air and landed steadily around him, surrounding him in the middle. Fa Yuan said, Brother, the brothers from the Exorcist Academy have made their move. You have to be careful. So what? Fa Hung laughed coldly. His thin body suddenly transformed into a number of shadows, each shadow pouncing toward the person. The 4 monks closed their eyes slightly, ignoring his right palm. They pushed their palms toward the sky. Bang! Fa Hung's figure appeared in midair, and he glanced at the 4 people in surprise. His strange body movement technique had deceived countless people, but it had not been able to deceive these 4 fellows from the Exorcist Academy. As expected of the Exorcist Academy, Fa Yuan's finger force attacked silently. The spear finger strike was invisible and formless, and it was impossible to defend against it. Fa Hung's figure swayed, and 2 more shadows appeared. He avoided the spear finger strike and pounced towards the 4 monks again. The 4 monks did not move. They slammed their palms into the air again and shook Fa Hung out. Chapter 392. P.S. The next chapter might be late, but it will be at 6. He knew that his movement technique had been seen through. The fellows of the Exorcist Academy were the best at capturing people. It was as if they had formed a giant net. As long as they fell into the net, no matter how they struggled, they would become more and more powerless. In the end, they would be subdued and captured. This was the unique inheritance of the Exorcist Academy. The other disciples of the Great Lane Temple had never learned it before. When he was in the temple, he had heard that the martial arts of the Exorcist Academy had a unique style. It faintly restrained the martial arts of the Great Lane Temple. As long as the Exorcist Academy made a move, it would almost never fail. Because of this, the disciples of the Great Lane Temple had to abide by the precepts and did not dare to disobey. The Qing Gong that he cultivated was top-notch and unpredictable, but he couldn't hide it from the guys from the Exorcist Academy. It seemed that the rumor was not exaggerated. The martial arts of the Exorcist Academy could indeed restrain him. Since that was the case, it was not appropriate for him to fight. All right. He laughed, and his body suddenly shrank. His long robe turned into a long robe, fluttering in the wind and dragging on the ground. He pulled up his sleeves and tied them around his waist. His eyes shone like swords. Senior brothers, this is Nirvana. Don't let him continue. The faster we subdue him, the better. Fa Yuan hurriedly said. As he spoke, he lightly pointed out with his finger. The spear finger strike became erratic and unpredictable. It did not move in a straight line. It was like a willow leaf floating in the wind. It moved in a circular arc to Fa Heng's back and struck him soundlessly. Fa Heng let out a muffled groan. There were two forces colliding at his heart meridian. His heart meridian wanted to break, but it was suppressed by an invisible force, and he barely managed to hold on. Chu Li felt that it was an eye-opener. He did not know that the spear finger strike could have such a transformation. It was obvious that this was the second level of the spear finger strike. He had clearly seen the route of channeling his energy. If he had not learned this spell from Fa Yuan, he would not have been able to master this technique no matter what. The wisdom of the seniors of the Tempest Temple was truly admirable. One could not help but admire them. Fa Heng was able to suppress the spear finger strike. The formula was also shocking enough. As his body shrank, his inner force condensed as well, becoming purer and more powerful. His body also became more powerful. This Nirvana rebirth technique, the formula was also incomparably powerful, and he had already imprinted it into his mind. Every time he met a disciple of the Tempest Temple, he would reap great rewards. This gave Chu Li a sense of anticipation. The martial arts of the Tempest Temple required a profound understanding of the Dharma in order to be successfully cultivated. Coincidentally, he had a profound understanding of the Dharma, so cultivating the martial arts of the Tempest Temple was like a fish in water. It was even easier for him than the disciples of the Tempest Temple. Other than the sentient menace, he was able to master all the other martial arts of the Tempest Temple in a short period of time. Now that his heavenly demonic power had reached the third level, his sentient menace had also improved. He had a feeling that he was about to break through to the next level. Fa Heng appeared in front of a middle-aged monk in a flash. His right hand turned into a claw and slashed at the monk's bald head. The middle-aged monk formed a sword with his fingers and stabbed at the center of the claw. Fa Heng changed his claw into a fist. The middle-aged monk also changed his finger into a fist. The speed at which the two of them changed their moves was dazzling. There were so many changes in a single move. In the end, their fists collided. Punk. The middle-aged monk took a step back. Fa Heng's body movement technique disappeared in a flash, and he appeared outside the four-man formation. The four of them flew up and caught up with Fa Heng in the air. They landed again, wanting to encircle Fa Heng in the formation. Fa Heng shrunk his body and once again separated himself from the four of them. He entered the forest and coincidentally avoided Fa Yuan's spear finger strike. Fa Yuan suddenly frowned. Just as he was about to give chase, his body stopped. Chu Li stood out from behind the tree and smiled at him. Fa Yuan, long time no see. Almsgiver Chu, it's you. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Almsgiver Chu is even more elegant than before. Fa Yuan, you guys can't take down Fa Heng, Chu Li said. Fa Yuan said, if we can't take him down, there will naturally be other senior brothers in the temple. Brother Fa Heng can't escape. Almsgiver Chu, don't worry. No disciple of the Tempest Temple who betrayed the temple can escape. What happened to the raging tiger troop back then? Chu Li scoffed. You guys will catch the traitors sooner or later. It might take 10 years, 20 years. During this time, who knows how much evil this disciple has done? The sins of the Tempest Temple are too great. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Chu Li's words were straight to the heart. Fa Yuan could not refute it, but he did not care. The Tempest Temple, however, had another way of saying it. Everyone had their own cause and fate. The evil that the disciples who betrayed the temple had done was also the cycle of karma. Dying tragically at the hands of a disciple of the temple could be a debt owed in the past life. Now, it was time to repay the debt. What you sow, what you reap. Since the disciple had done such evil, there would be consequences waiting for him. Chu Li said, If I kill him, you won't be like the disciples of the raging tiger troop last time and seek revenge on me, right? The disciples of the Tempest Temple will naturally be punished according to the temple rules. Almsgiver Chu doesn't have to worry about it, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li scoffed. If that's the case, if I kill Fa Hung, the Tempest Temple will seek revenge for him, right? Fa Yuan muttered. How about this? This time, consider it as me asking for Almsgiver Chu's help. Chu Li laughed. Little monk, you finally have some conscience. All right, I will help. However, Almsgiver Chu, I have a request, Fa Yuan said. Chu Li smiled. Can't you reveal his identity? Fa Yuan nodded slowly and pressed his palms together. Almsgiver Chu is wise. All right, I agree. Chu Li smiled. But you must say that it was the House of High Duke who took care of this guy. All right, Fa Yuan nodded. Both of them took what they needed. It cannot be better. After failing to kill Chu Li the last time, the Tempest Temple no longer wanted to kill him. Who would have thought that the good karma would be repaid now? Chu Li said, Fa Yuan, I'm very curious. What martial arts did this Fa Hung cultivate? Fa Yuan revealed a troubled expression. Chu Li said, The eagle power? Fa Yuan was surprised. Chu Li slowly said, The eagle power? This body movement technique is indeed strange. All right, I heard that your temple has a type of Azura power technique. I wonder if it's true. Almsgiver Chu is really knowledgeable. Fa Yuan sighed. The eagle power technique is said to be inherited from the spirit eagle. Its power is amazing. Unfortunately, the eagle's nature is cruel. Without a profound dermic base, it cannot be controlled. Is the Azura power technique the same? Chu Li said, I've seen someone cultivate this technique. Who? Fa Yuan's face turned serious. Chu Li said, The prince, King Fa Yuan frowned and pondered. Chu Li smiled. King obtained it from the imperial house. It must have come from the Tempest Temple, right? The martial arts of the Tempest Temple are all scourges. Problems arise at every turn. Fa Yuan said, As long as the dermic base is profound, it will naturally turn evil into peace. There will be no problems. Unfortunately, how many dermic base can be profound? Chu Li said, Those who join the Tempest Temple are all for martial arts. They are not really for the dermic base. Is there a way to control the Azura power technique? Did he obtain the heart of Azura? Fa Yuan asked. Chu Li shook his head. I'm not sure. What's the difference? If he obtained the heart of Azura, things can still be done. Fa Yuan sighed. If he did not obtain the heart of Azura, the power of Azura needs to be born by the body and become the body of Azura. The more he cultivates, the colder his heart will become. The killing intent will become stronger. Even the dermic base cannot suppress it. What will happen if he cannot suppress it? Chu Li said, His cultivation level will become higher and higher, right? Yes. Fa Yuan sighed. The advancement of the Azura power technique is shocking. I need to report this to the temple. This is no small matter. Once the Azura power technique is cultivated, the world will be in danger. Your temple has an enlightened master. Just kill him. Chu Li smiled. Fa Yuan shook his head. Azura, this matter is not that simple. Almsgiver Chu, thank you. Chapter 393. Fa Yuan smiled. I have heard about the grudge between Prince and the public house. Chuli pointed at him. The Tempest Temple is everywhere. Does the Azura power technique not have any weaknesses? Fa Yuan thought about it and shook his head. The Azura power technique is passed down from the Azura clan. They are born to kill. To subdue them, one needs to have a profound dermic base. Unfortunately, those who have such dermic base are not in this whirling world. Chuli asked, "Is he invincible?" "Don't worry, almsgiver Chu. There is no invincible martial art. As long as he is stopped in time and does not completely transform into Azura, there is nothing to worry about," Fa Yuan said slowly. "I'm just afraid that the temple is helpless. If it was someone else, the Tempest Temple would have made a move already. But this is a prince, the legitimate son of the emperor. The protectors of the imperial house are not incompetent. They will not just stand by and do nothing. Besides, there is still the emperor." With every sentence he said, Fa Yuan's eyebrows furrowed even more. When Chuli finished, Fa Yuan's eyebrows were completely furrowed and he was silent. Chuli smiled. "If the Tempest Temple has any way to restrain the Azura power technique, why don't you tell me? My status is high and I can deal with him. I'm afraid I have to disappoint almsgiver Chu. Unfortunately, he did not use the heart of Azura. If not, this would not have happened." "What would happen if he used the heart of Azura?" Chuli asked. Fa Yuan said, "If he had the heart of Azura, all his cultivation would be stored in the heart of Azura. His body would not need to transform, and the Azura power technique would not affect his body as much. If he swallowed the heart of Azura, he could become a top-notch master overnight, but his cultivation would be stagnant. No matter how he cultivated, he would not be able to break through the limit. If he did not use the heart of Azura, his progress would be slower and he would have to endure more pain. However, his future potential is limitless. He could even threaten an enlightened master. The heart of Azura." Chuli shook his head and sighed. "His body is full of sarcomas. I don't think he used the heart of Azura. Almsgiver Chu, this is not a trivial matter. I will report this to the temple. Even if he is a prince, we will find a way to break his cultivation. This is not only for the temple, but for the world." Chuli sighed and nodded slowly. Gratitude and grudges were unpredictable. Who would have thought that they, who were enemies a while ago, would join forces to deal with a single person today? He was not afraid of King En's threat. His heavenly demonic power was stronger than King En. He did not want to deal with King En himself. The emperor, an enlightened master, was like a sword hanging above his head, ready to fall at any time. All of his methods were for the sake of getting someone else to do his dirty work. If he could use the Tempest Temple as his weapon, it would be the best. He was glad that he had snatched the heart of Azura back then. If he had not snatched the heart of Azura, his heavenly demonic power would not have reached the 3rd level. On the other hand, if King En swallowed the heart of Azura, his cultivation would skyrocket, and that would be his doomsday. All right, let's stop talking about proper business here. Let's take care of your senior brother, Fa Hung, while we're at it, Chuli said with a smile. Fa Yuan sighed, pressed his palms together, and chanted the name of Buddha. Chuli said, "He has already lost his humanity. Fa Yuan, you don't have to feel pity for him. Senior brother Fa Hung was not originally this cruel. He was harmed by the heavenly eagle power." Fa Yuan shook his head and said, "I feel pity for senior brother Fa Hung. If he did not have such a cruel seed in his heart, he would not have become like this." Chuli shook his head and said, "The technique only amplified his cruelty. There is nothing to feel pity about." He suddenly disappeared in front of Fa Yuan and appeared at the bank of the Li River. Behind Fa Hung was the torrential river water. In front of him stood 3 white-haired elders, blocking his way. The 3 white-haired elders' faces were solemn. They stared at him, their bodies tensed up. Chuli glanced at them. They were acquaintances, the high officials of the House of High Dukes. "Elder Goe," Chuli closed fist saluted. The 3 white-haired elders turned to look at Chuli and smiled. They closed fist saluted and said, "Chief Chu." Chuli smiled and said, "Elder Goe, Elder Li, and Elder Meng, why are you here?" We have been tracking this evil thief. Elder Gue was tall. His hair was snow white, but his face was as red as a baby's. His voice was like a large bell. He scoffed and said, "Such an evil thief cannot be tolerated by the heavens. If the House of High Dukes cannot take him down, they will really be the laughing stock of the world." Chuli nodded and said, "Elder Gue, Elder Lee, Elder Ming, the three of you sit by and watch. Leave it to me. Chief, be careful of this guy. His body movement technique is extremely fast," Elder Gue said in a low voice. "The three of us have been chasing him for several days, but he always escapes." Chuli smiled and said, "I will be careful." Faheng looked at Chu Li quietly and frowned. "Who are you?" Chuli said lightly. "Chu Li of E Public House. Reincarnate into a good body in your next life." He appeared beside Fa Hung in a flash. He did not want Fa Hung to speak too much in case his identity was exposed. Fa Heng's body became vague, as if he had become a shadow. The long sword on Chu Li's waist suddenly lit up. Then, it condensed into a star. It was faintly discernible, seemingly fast yet slow, erratic, and unpredictable. Fa Heng's figure appeared out of thin air in front of the tip of the sword. Chu Li returned the sword to its scabbard. Fa Heng's heart suddenly spurted blood. He clutched his chest and widened his eyes in disbelief, staring straight at Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. If he had other martial arts, it would have been fine. This kind of body movement technique that relied on illusory and real changes was the most useless against him. Under the omniscient mirror, everything was incomparably clear. It was even easier to deal with in pure speed. Meeting Chu Li could be considered as him meeting his nemesis. Elder Gue and the other two also widened their eyes. They found it hard to believe. After chasing for a few days and nights, and fighting more than 10 times, he escaped. Such a top-notch master actually died in one move in front of Chu Li. It was really unimaginable. When did Chief Chu Li's martial arts reach such a level? Fa Yuan stood in the dark and squinted his eyes, deep in thought. Chu Li smiled and said, "Elder Gue, everyone, don't bother about this guy anymore. Just leave him here. This kind of guy should not be buried in peace." "Chief Chu, I've troubled you." Elder Gue sighed and smiled helplessly. "If it weren't for Chief Chu, we wouldn't be able to do anything to him." Chu Li waved his hand and smiled. "It's going to be Master Xiao Taiying's wedding soon. This guy causing trouble at this time is purely courting death. I'll take my leave first. Let's go back to the public house and catch up." "All right." Elder Gue and the other two closed fists saluted. Chu Li's white robe fluttered as he left. Elder Gue and the other two stood in the same place for a long time without moving. After a while, they looked down at Fa Hung, who had already breathed his last. They shook their heads and smiled bitterly. "I'm really getting old." Elder Gue sighed. "Now, it's the world of the young." "Elder Gue, come on. How many geniuses like Chief Chu are there in this world?" The old man next to him smiled and said, "We were also geniuses when we were young. Although we were a level lower than Chief Chu, we were also influential people." Elder Gue laughed and said, "It's a pity that Chief Chu went to the imperial residence. The High Duke's public house lost a part of its deterrent force. The previous incident has already scared those guys. This time, they will be more well-behaved." Another old man smiled and said, "Are we really going to leave this guy here? The dead are the most important. Logically, he should still be buried." An old man sighed and said, "But since Chief Chu has spoken, we should just obey. Let's go. We can go back and rest. Our old arms and legs can't take it once we move." Elder Gue smiled and said. Chapter 394. Chu Li returned to Fairy's capital. Han Fei was eating in a small restaurant. When he saw Chu Li coming in, he waved his hand. Chu Li sat opposite him. "It's settled." Han Fei smiled. "How could Brother Chu not solve it?" "Forget it. Let's not talk about this guy. I lose my appetite." He knew Chu Li's divine power, so he was not surprised. No matter how fast that guy was, he was not faster than Chu Li. It was only natural that he was killed by Chu Li. Chu Li said, "Brother Han, did you come here to experience the prosperity of Fairy's capital, or to settle down here. I'll leave after a walk. Han Fei shook his head. Now that the River Alliance is divided, it's a good opportunity for Jiangchuan Alliance. I can't let it go. Chu Li nodded and smiled. Can you take over the entire Li River? That's not possible, but I'm confident in expanding the territory by half. Han Fei put down his chopsticks, opened his folding fan, and waved it coolly. From now on, I can also use my fists and legs. Then I wish Brother Han all the best, Chu Li said with a smile. He knew that Han Fei had great ambitions. He wanted to turn Jiangchuan Alliance into a large association that combined factions, trading companies, and escorts. It would be able to operate independently without the interference of external forces and become its own kingdom. This was easy to say and exciting, but it was difficult to do. Breaking the old interest system and building a new system had great resistance. It was not something that could be achieved just by thinking about it. It required a lot of effort. This expansion of the territory gave Han Fei the best opportunity to test his ideas on these newly expanded territories. It would be much easier. Chu Li was tipsy as he walked back. When he returned to Tianshu courtyard, the tipsy feeling had disappeared and there was no smell of alcohol on him. He did not use inner energy to expel it. It was purely his body that dissolved the alcohol. His body had been tempered by the life and death scripture, sentient menace, art of white tiger, and heavenly demonic power. It was getting stronger, and his internal organs were a few times stronger than ordinary people. The tipsy feeling was dispelled after a while, as if someone had slept for a night. As soon as he entered Tianshu courtyard, a slender figure rushed over with a faint fragrance. Chu Li smiled and took a step back. Closed fist saluted Lady Qiu. Lung Qiu stopped in her tracks and glared at him in dissatisfaction. Head Chief, are you avoiding me? Chu Li could not help but laugh. He looked at Co. Shi and the others who were watching the show with a faint smile. He shook his head and said, Why would I avoid you, Miss Qiu? Lung Qiu pursed her red lips and scoffed. Don't think that I'm stupid. If you didn't avoid me, why haven't you seen me for so many days? Isolated cultivation, Chu Li replied. Lung Qiu curled her lips and snorted. You went into closed-door cultivation to avoid me. Otherwise, why would you go into closed-door cultivation for no reason? Chu Li was helpless. He could not say that it was to deal with King In. There was no way to reason with this little girl, so the best way was to change the topic. The hunting ceremony is about to begin, right? Tomorrow, Lung Qiu hurriedly said. You're not allowed to hide this time. Promise me. All right, I'll definitely go tomorrow, Chu Li quickly said. Xuaningyu stood at the side with a smile. Head Chief, sorry to trouble you. Chu Li said, I also won't watch the show. I heard that all the disciples from the imperial residence will be participating? Yes, the disciples from the 12 imperial residences will be there. Song Luiying said, Qing Er will be going too. When the time comes, the two of them will be together. Head Chief, you'll have to help take care of them. Chu Li nodded. It's my duty. Lung Qing faintly glanced at him. She was not interested in him. Co. Shi said, Great, I'll join the fun too. Sister Co., can your body handle it? Song Luiying said, Don't force yourself. You'll hurt your vitality. I've been staying in the house all day. It's boring. Co. Shi said, All the princesses will be there, right? It's time for me to meet the princesses. Then you'll be exhausted. Xuaningyu said, They're all curious about you, the first beauty of the great Ji dynasty. They want to come and see you. That's great. Co. Shi smiled. Chu Li glanced at her. Co. Shi looked serious, but her injuries were almost healed. The imperial enclosure in the eastern suburbs of the fairies' capital covered an area of 3,000 acres. The enclosure was covered with dense forests. At a glance, it was all lush green grass. It was as if they were in a grassland. The scenery was completely different from the great Ji dynasty. The enclosure was filled with clanking armors, flags fluttering, and the sound of fighting was endless. It was like a battlefield. Chu Li knew about this enclosure. It was said that it was built to imitate the terrain of the Li dynasty. The Li dynasty's cavalry was the best in the world. The Li dynasty was full of ambition, especially towards the great Ji dynasty. They wanted to march their cavalry eastward at any time to flatten the Great Ji dynasty. The Great Ji dynasty and the Li dynasty have been entangled since the founding of the dynasty. The battle at the border never stopped. Initially, this enclosure was built to recreate the battle at the border. The generals and the emperor discussed the gains and losses and summarized the experience. All these years, the Great Ji dynasty's cavalry had become more and more elite. However, there was still a gap between them and the Li dynasty. The key was that the horses were not good enough. There were not many who were good at raising horses. The horses were not good enough because the grass was not good enough. After all, the Li dynasty was located in the grassland. The grass was fertile. The Great Ji dynasty did not have such an environment. The grass they planted and raised were far inferior. It was just like how the quality of a person's food determined his health. No matter how good a horse was, without good grass, it would be useless. This imperial enclosure was built not only to nurture soldiers, but also to grow grass and train good horses. Chuli rode a black horse and followed beside Seo Shur. They slowly went out of the east gate. Seo Shur rode a white horse. There was not a trace of other colors on her body. She was dressed in a moon-white outfit with a red cloak. Her gentle beauty exuded a sense of valiance. She stole the limelight of everyone around her. Song Luiying, Xuanning Yu, Lung Qing, Lung Xiao, and even Shui Ling and Yang Su were overshadowed. Her face was like white jade. Her eyes were like deep pools. She sat quietly on the horse. Her graceful and delicate body rose and fell along with the horse's back. She was elegant and poised. She exuded a peerless beauty. The people who passed by stared with their eyes wide open. Song Luiying smiled. We shouldn't be with Sister Seo. Xuanning Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Although they had daughters, as women, beauty always came first. Seo Shur was so beautiful that they, as women, could not stop praising her beauty. Being by her side, they became a foil. It was really helpless. Seo Shur smiled gently. Sister Song, how far are we going? On both sides of the road, there were soldiers standing upright. Their iron armors gleamed coldly under the sunlight. They were separated by a distance of 10 meters, standing as straight as a tree. Their eyes were looking straight ahead. They stood still like trees. It was as if they did not see Seo Shur's beauty. They only glanced at her from the corner of their eyes. Their gazes were still fixed in one spot. Chu Li sized up the soldiers on both sides of the road. Their aura was thick. They had killed and seen blood. It was obvious that they were elites who had been through hundreds of battles. Zheng Lide followed behind Chu Li. Seeing Chu Li staring at the soldiers, he smiled. Head Chief, these are the veterans who retired from the border to recuperate. They all have military merits. He had complicated feelings towards Chu Li. He respected and feared him. He was worried that he would be implicated if he stayed too close to him. But he was his superior, so he had to listen. Chu Li nodded and sighed. They still want to go back after recuperating. Most of them will be transferred to other places. Zheng Lide said, every new soldier will have to train for 2 years. Once they become veterans, they will have to endure at the border for a year. They will be promoted based on their military merits. They will be transferred to other places. These soldiers who participated in the hunting ceremony have all achieved military merits. The Li dynasty. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Chapter 395. Zheng Lide said, Head Chief, our 2 young misses are lucky. If they were born men, they would have to go to the border for a year. It's very dangerous. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Where's the prince? He then laughed. It seems that every prince has an understanding of war. If a prince's son had been to the battlefield, then it was obvious that all the current princes had been there. Now it was their son's turn. Generation after generation, none of them could escape. Yes. Zheng Lide sighed. Chu Li said, that's why every prince knows that the Great Ji dynasty is not easy, and that they must always be on guard against the Li dynasty. That's why they're forced to improve themselves, so that they won't become a fatuous ruler who indulges in pleasure. Yes, this is also Emperor Taizu's painstaking efforts. Zheng Lide said, It's also thanks to this that the Ji dynasty's emperors have been wise for generations. There has never been an incapable emperor. The two of them chatted as they slowly walked away from the city gate. The official road outside was bustling with activity. There were soldiers on guard, and no ordinary people could be seen. The people on the road were all from the various king manors. Even so, it was still bustling with activity. Both men and women were dressed in martial attire. The man looked heroic, and the woman looked valiant and formidable, as if they were really going to the battlefield. To many of the male servants of the king's mansion, this was a chance for them to get used to the battlefield in advance. In the future, they would have to step into such a battlefield. From this, it could be seen that the hunting ceremony had been painstakingly planned and not just for fun. When everyone gathered together, they could also improve their relationship. No matter how good a relationship was, it would fade if they didn't see each other often. This kind of hunting ceremony was very beneficial to increasing the cohesiveness of the royal family. Chuli sighed to himself. None of the people who founded the dynasty were mediocre. Each of their major activities contained extraordinary wisdom that would be passed down to future generations. While the two of them were talking, 3 riders suddenly rushed out of the city gate and headed straight for them. Chuli turned his head to look. The 3 red horses looked as if they were draped in satin, sparkling in the sunlight. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived in front of them. If they did not give way, they would collide with them. Chuli flicked his sleeve. A surging power appeared out of thin air, like a wall erected in front of them. Nay, the steed neighed lightly as it stood on its hind legs and stopped in front of the chi wall. Bang, bang, bang. 3 muffled sounds could be heard, but the 3 riders were not as lucky. They flew out and landed behind Chu Li and the others. Lung Xiao and Lung Qing turned around. Lung Xiao wrinkled her nose and glared at the person on the ground. She scoffed proudly. Serves you right. The 3 knights got up. 2 of them were middle-aged men, and 1 was a fat young man. Their faces were so gloomy that they looked like they were about to burst into flames. They glared at Chu Li and the others, especially the fat young man. His face was trembling with rage. Who did it? The obese youth asked in a deep voice. His voice seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. Zheng Lide cupped his fists. Greetings, young prince. Get lost? I'm not talking to you. The plump young man waved his hand and glared fiercely at Lung Xiao. Lung Xiao, you still dare to come? You really have guts. Lung Xiao snorted. Why wouldn't I dare to come? Lung Tao, do you think you're the only one powerful? Everyone is afraid of you. What a joke. Lung Tao narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. Hand over the culprit, and I'll let you go. I'll let you go. Lung Xiao snorted proudly. You fell flat on your face, and you still have the nerve to talk big. If you know what's good for you, you should scram. You're still here talking nonsense. What a joke. Lung Xiao, looks like you've hired a master. Lung Tao said in disdain. So what? You'll still get beaten up. Lung Xiao pursed her red lips and said hatefully. Let's see who gets beaten up this time. Chuli stood still and watched Lung Xiao and Lung Tao bicker. He looked at Zheng Lide. Zheng Lide said in a low voice, the legitimate son of King Cheng. Chuli nodded. No wonder he was so arrogant. It was because of his family style. He learned for his own father. Who did it just now? Come out. Lung Tao stopped bickering with Lung Xiao and shouted at Chu Li and the others. Xiao, sure, said lightly. Which family's child is so disrespectful to his elders? You. Lung Tao's gaze was focused on Lung Xiao. He did not look at anyone else. Now that he saw Xiao Sure, his cursing words stopped abruptly. Song Luiying smiled faintly. The son of King Cheng. He's a devil incarnate. Don't lower yourself to his level. Greetings, young lady. Lung Tao closed fists saluted and squeezed out a smile. His chubby face seemed to be squeezed into a ball. His small eyes could not be seen. Xiao Sure said lightly. I'm King An's wife. You should call me Aunt. So your third uncle's new wife. Sorry for not recognizing you. Lung Tao laughed. His small eyes were gleaming. He stared at Xiao Shure's face and sighed. You live up to your reputation. Xiao Shure frowned and said lightly. You should leave. Yes, I should leave. Lung Tao nodded. He immediately reacted and shook his head. No, no, I haven't found the culprit yet. Aunt Co, sure. Sigh, it's too awkward to call you that. It makes you sound old. Co sure said impatiently. No matter how young I am, I'm still your third aunt. Go on. Wait. Lung Tao shook his head. I'll only leave after I find the culprit. You fell down by accident. You can't blame anyone for your poor riding skills. Co sure waved her hand. She turned around and gently tapped on the horse. The white horse lightly flipped its hooves and started to trot. Everyone followed suit. Lung Tao shouted, "You're not allowed to leave." He glared at the two middle-aged men. The two middle-aged men shook their heads and said softly, "Master, just let them go." Bullsh *T. Lung Tao shouted angrily. He scoffed, "If I don't find the culprit, I won't agree." "Master," one of the middle-aged men said softly, "even if we find them, it won't end well. It won't be too late to settle the score when Elderchin comes. They won't be able to escape anyway." That's right, the other middle-aged man advised. Lung Tao scoffed, "No way. I won't believe it today." "Master," the two middle-aged men advised softly. As grandmasters, they knew better than anyone how terrifying that attack was. Their bodies were instantly bound by an invisible force. They were powerless to resist. Otherwise, as grandmasters, how could they fall so hard and fail to protect Lung Tao? Lung Tao shouted, "Lung Xiao, you're not allowed to leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning against you." Lung Xiao rode on his horse. He pouted and shouted, "I'm not going to turn against you. I can't be bothered with you." Lung Tao jumped on his horse and chased after them. He scoffed, "Who did this? Come out now. Otherwise, don't be afraid of me." Chuli shook his head and sighed. This guy was really stubborn. He extended his hand. "Young prince, it's me. Shin Kong isn't here. How dare you be so presumptuous?" "Who are you?" Lung Tao glared at him and scoffed. "So what if Elderchin isn't here? Don't tell me you dare to hit me?" Chuli sighed and waved his hand. Slap. Lung Tao covered his face in disbelief. His small eyes widened. You. Chuli said, "Next time, look ahead when you walk. Don't be reckless. Be careful. Don't kill yourself." "Who are you?" Lung Tao roared. Chuli shook his head. "Let's go." Chapter 396. P.S. The sixth Alliance leader has been born. Alliance leader Moon Fairies, Crystal Castle. "Stop!" Lung Tao roared. Chu Li and the others ignored him and ran away. "Go after him." Lung Tao put down his hand and shouted, "Catch up to him. Kill him." "Master," a middle-aged man shouted. Lung Tao turned his head and glared at him as if he wanted to eat him alive. The middle-aged man whispered, "Master, let it go. Let it go." Lung Tao widened his eyes in disbelief and shouted, "I was hit by him, and you're telling me to let it go." Another middle-aged man looked at him in confusion. "Elder Zhang, what happened?" Elder Zhang sighed and whispered, "Master, Elder Huang, if I'm not mistaken, that guy is Chu Li, the head chief of the imperial residence of King in Rank 1. "It can't be," Elder Huang cried out. "Chu Li is so young." Although he heard that Chu Li was a young talent, he did not expect him to be this young. A Rank 1 young talent would have to be at least 30 years old. Head Chief Chu. He's famous in the fairies' capital. He's a famous young talent. To be able to reach Rank 1 at such a young age, no one can compare to him. Old Zhang whispered, "Do you think we could do anything to him?" He looked at Lung Tao sympathetically. "Master, don't stoop to his level." Bullsh *T. Lung Tao was unconvinced. "So what if he's Rank 1? I'm a prince." Elder Zhang and Elder Huang were silent. In other countries, princes and princes may have a higher status than chancellors, but it was different in the Great Ji dynasty. Before ascending the throne, the princes were no different from the chancellors. Monarch, minister, father, and son, they were first the chancellors, then the emperor's son. The Royal Highness was just a title. He received a higher salary as a father's sympathy for his son. Other than that, he did not have any real power. If he wanted power, he could only enter the court and become an official. There was no shortcut to starting from the official position and rank. These princes only had one advantage. which was their potential to inherit the throne. A prince who had no hope of inheriting the throne was no different from an ordinary minister. In fact, he was even worse than an ordinary minister. Once he suppressed his brothers and ascended the throne, the emperor wouldn't help these brothers much. Instead, he would be on guard against them, afraid that they would get too big and mess up the court. Among the princes, the merits and demerits were obvious. King Jing had the most support, so the other princes were not in a good position. The chancellors would not be too lenient with them and would not let go of any opportunity to impeach them. Lung Tao stomped his feet and pointed at the sky as he cursed. The great ancestor's way of thinking is so strange. How dare he let these people from the High Duke's public houses be so arrogant and lawless? Old Zhang and Old Huang hurriedly waved their hands. Young master, be careful with your words. Be careful, my ass. Lung Tao was unconvinced and shouted, Am I wrong? Based on what? Based on what? The 12 High Dukes are transcendent rank, and my father is only rank 4. Who's the real son here? Old Zhang and Old Huang watched as Chu Li and the others slowly walked away and gradually sighed in relief. They were happy to argue with Lung Tao and divert his attention so that he would not be able to catch up with them. Young master, you can't say that. After all, the people from the High Duke's public houses have worked hard. Just look at the assassination attempt by Princess Sio when she first entered the imperial residence of King, and many martial arts masters won her life. The High Duke's public houses have offended many martial arts masters. Old Zhang said in a low voice. Old Huang also hurriedly said, That's right, those martial arts masters are all very hot-blooded. Their martial arts are strong, and they don't care about their lives. They're like lunatics. As High Dukes, they have to live in fear every day. It's even harder than the generals fighting at the frontier. The generals still have time to rest. They can completely relax. After a battle, they can either be transferred to other places to enjoy their lives or return to Fairy's capital to enjoy their lives. As for the High Dukes, they have to be on guard at all times. They don't know when a top-notch martial arts master will jump out and assassinate them. What's worse is that these martial arts masters don't have what they say about not involving their families. Which of the young masters and young ladies of the High Duke's public houses have not been assassinated before? Moreover, the High Dukes also had outstanding military achievements. Together, they conquered the Great Ji dynasty. Not only can their descendants not enjoy their lives, but they also have to suffer. The transcendent rank is also the great ancestors' compensation to the High Duke's public houses. Old Zhang sighed. The hearts of the chancellors are also made of flesh. They all know that the High Duke's public houses are not easy. Then let's not talk about the High Dukes. Let's talk about Chu Li. Lung Tao scoffed and said unwillingly, He's so young, and he's already a rank 1. How old is my father? He's only been promoted to rank 4. I don't even know if he'll be promoted to rank 1 in this lifetime. This is too much. Well, Old Zhang and Old Huang looked at each other and did not say anything. Lung Tao smirked. You have nothing to say now, right? Old Zhang sighed. Master, the eldest master of the Yi public house has a good reputation. He's open, fair, and strict. He will never be biased. Since Chu Li can be promoted to rank 1, he must have accumulated enough merits. He's a scribe, not a protector. He needs to rely on merits to be promoted. How many merits does it take to be promoted to rank 1? Lung Tao scoffed in disdain. I've never even heard of it. Old Huang looked to his left and right. Coincidentally, there was no one passing by. He lowered his voice and said, The Rin public house has always been against the Yi public house. Lu Yurong's methods are amazing. In the end, she suffered a few losses in Chu Li's hands. Lu Yurong? Lung Tao's expression changed slightly. He looked to his left and right and scoffed. Don't mention this be *TCH. Old Zhang and Old Huang looked at each other and laughed in their hearts. If Lu Yurong was here and Master still dared to call her that, then they would admire Master's courage and boldness. Lung Tao gritted his teeth and scoffed. I don't care. Since Chu Li dared to slap me, I must avenge him. When Old Chun comes, We'll teach him a lesson. Old Huang quickly said. Lung Tao glared at the two of them. You two old things, you're so cunning. Old Zhang and Old Huang laughed. Master, to be honest, we're no match for Chu Li. Only if Old Chun comes will we have a chance. You guys can't be counted on. We can only rely on Old Chun. Lung Tao scoffed and turned to look at the town gate. Another group of people came from the town gate. There were more than 10 horses. There were 3 horses in the lead. In the middle was a purplish-red steed, on which sat a beautiful middle-aged woman who still retained her charm. Beside her were 2 stunning beauties of the prime of their youth. One was amorous and spirited, while the other was pure and innocent with a pair of quick-witted eyes. Lung Tao quickly lowered his head and shrunk his shoulders to hide beside the horse. He cursed his bad luck. Aren't they from the Chung Wang family? The middle-aged woman chuckled and looked at Lung Tao, who had shrunk his head and shoulders, trying to hide himself. Lung Tao's fat body could not be hidden by the horse. Instead, it attracted more attention and could be seen from afar. Lung Tao helplessly closed fists saluted, and his fat face was full of smiles. Fifth aunt. He dared to be rude to Princess, but he dared not to be rude to this princess. The smile on his face was sincere and intimate. No need to be so polite. Young Tao, why did you stop here? The middle-aged woman chuckled and waved her hand. What happened to your face? Did your father hit you again? Chapter 397. The flirtatious young lady smiled sweetly. If it wasn't King Chung, then it must be someone else. I'd like to know who had the guts to lay a hand on you. Lu Yurong. Lady Lu, it's none of your business. Lung Tao glared at her and scoffed. Who did it, Brother Tao? The young lady smiled and asked. That slap wasn't light at all. It's too much. Young Ying, people like him need to be taught a lesson. Good job. The flirtatious young lady was Lu Yurong. She smiled and said, I really admire that guy for having the guts. When we meet, we must thank him properly. Lady Lu, don't be so full of yourself. Lung Tao, defeat Gu Ao and Bo Chiu. Li Yi, Jin Lu Yurong frowned. It can't be Chu Li, right? It's that bastard. Lung Tao said angrily. Let's not talk about our eldest brother. I've suffered at his hands, and so have you. I will get back at him and make him kneel and beg for mercy. Lu Yurong smiled charmingly. All right, I'd like to see him kneel and beg for mercy. Lung Tao, if you can do it, I'll bow to you every time I see you. All right, remember what you said. Lung Tao quickly said. He turned to the beautiful middle-aged woman and the young lady and said, Fifth aunt, Young Ying, you heard what Lady Lu said. Be my witness. Lung Ying looked at him with pity. Lu Yurong smiled lightly. If you can do it, I'll bow to you. What if you can't? What do you say? Lung Tao scoffed. Lu Yurong smiled. Then every time you see me, you'll run far away and don't let me see you. You dash. Lung Tao glared at her and said indignantly, Am I that annoying? You know. Lu Yurong smiled faintly. Are you not confident and don't dare to bet? Let's bet. Lung Tao scoffed, full of arrogance. Don't think that you'll always win. This time, you'll definitely lose. Elder Chun is here too. He'll be here soon. Let him cause trouble for Chu Li. Lu Yurong could not help but laugh. Lung Tao, you're really stupid. Don't you know that even Elder Chun can't defeat Chu Li? Lung Tao's expression changed slightly as he sneered. Nonsense. Lu Yurong shook her head and sighed. I'm really worried for Prince Chung. With such a stupid son like you, what will he do in the future? Lung Tao hurriedly asked. What do you mean by that? Lung Ying sighed helplessly. Brother Tao, didn't you ask Elder Chun if he could defeat Chu Li? Do you even need to ask? Lung Tao said in disdain. No matter how powerful Chu Li is, he's no match for Elder Chun. The last time, King Yin's imperial residence was turned upside down by Elder Chun. There was no peace at all. If Chu Li could defeat Elder Chun, would he still be like this? Forget it. Lu Yurong scoffed. You're really good at bragging. What do you mean by turning the place upside down? No peace at all, and no peace at all. You guys only surrounded them for a few days and then retreated. You didn't even hurt the imperial residence of King Yin. but I still forced them to not dare to leave the imperial residence. What about now? Father is magnanimous. Seeing that we're brothers, he couldn't bear to force them too much. Lung Tao puffed up his chest and scoffed proudly. That's why he let them go, or else. Mmph. That's why I'm really worried for Prince Cheng. You're really too stupid. Lu Yurong shook her head and sighed. Why don't you think about it? With Prince Cheng's temper, how can he be magnanimous? Don't you think it's weird? Lung Tao scoffed. Father has always been magnanimous. Puffed. Lu Yurong could not help but laugh. Lung Ying and the middle-aged, beautiful woman also laughed. Lung Tao glared at them in dissatisfaction. Lu Yurong shook her head. When talking to an idiot like you have to make it clear or else you won't understand. Who's an idiot? Lung Tao scoffed unhappily. Lu Yurong said, It's not that Prince Cheng wants to let the imperial residence of Princeton go. It's because he has no other choice. Elder Chun can't deal with Chu Li either. So, you should just give up and don't show up in front of me in the future. Nonsense. I want to ask Elder Chun myself. Lung Tao shouted unhappily. Chun Kong rode a black horse and galloped past. Suddenly, he pulled on the reins, and the black horse stood up. Master? Chun Kong sat steadily on the horse's back and looked at his face curiously. Elder Chun. Lung Tao saw his savior and hurriedly called out. Chun Kong glided down from the horse and closed fist saluted. He smiled. Princess Lu missing Miss Lu. The three women curtsied on their horses. Lung Tao quickly asked, Elder Chun, can you defeat Chu Li? Chu Li? Chun Kong frowned slightly. Why did Master offend Chu Li? I didn't offend him, he offended me. Lung Tao touched his face angrily. It was still burning with pain. This guy slapped me. Although he had been slapped many times, it was always his father who slapped him. No one else dared to hit him. Chu Li was the first person to be so bold, so he must teach him a lesson. He must be punished as an example to others. Even if he could not be killed, he must be slapped 100 times to vent his anger. Chun Kong said, Why did you offend him? Princess Lu, please excuse us. Young people messing around. It's nothing. The middle-aged beauty smiled demurely. Elder Chun, don't lower yourself to their level. Yes, Chun Kong closed fists saluted and nodded. I will persuade Master. That's good. The middle-aged beauty smiled. We have been delayed here for a while. Let's go in case we miss the time. Princess Lu, please. Chun Kong said politely. The middle-aged beauty nodded slightly and led Lu Yurong and Lung Ying forward on their horses. Lung Tao and Chun Kong stopped and waited for the group to leave before they got on their horses. Elder Chun, Lu Yurong said you can't beat Chu Li. Lung Tao said impatiently, Is it true? Chu Li. Chun Kong frowned and muttered, I'm not 100% sure. Really? Lung Tao said disappointedly. How old is he? I'm afraid he's about the same age as me. Chun Kong looked at him and said nothing. Lung Tao understood the meaning in his eyes. He thought that he was useless. They were about the same age, but he was far weaker than Chu Li and was even beaten up by him. Lung Tao said angrily, He ambushed me, or I would have dodged it. Chun Kong said, If you want to defeat Chu Li, you can't do it in front of people. You have to do it in the dark. After all, he's rank 1. That's right. Lung Tao quickly said, Then how do we defeat him? It's best to kill him with a borrowed knife. Let Lady Lu deal with him. Chun Kong said, Lady Lu's martial arts is powerful. It's enough to defeat Chu Li. But Lu Yurong has suffered many losses in Chu Li's hands. Lung Tao scoffed. Lu Yurong still wants to kill him with a borrowed knife. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that Lu Yurong was trying to provoke him to fight Chu Li. Chun Kong smiled. Lu Yurong usually stays in the public house to train. She comes up with strategies and let her subordinates execute them. If she meets Chu Li, she won't be able to react in time. If the two of them fight, Chu Li won't be able to defeat Lu Yurong. All right then, let them fight. Lung Tao scoffed. Chapter 398. Lu Yurong and the others urged their horses to trot at a moderate pace. The bright and beautiful sunlight shone warmly on the body, but the soldiers on both sides of the road emitted a cold light, making people feel inexplicably solemn. Cousin sister, is that Chu really that powerful? Lung Ying asked curiously. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes. He even dared to hit Lung Tao. What do you think? You're quite bold. Lung Ying pursed her lips and smiled. Everyone knows Ninth Uncle's temper. No one dares to provoke him, but Chu actually dared to slap Brother Tao. He really has guts. He is quite bold. Princess Lu chuckled and said, This young man is quite interesting. He's just relying on his rank to be so unscrupulous. Lu Yurong said snappily, If he was in 9th rank, do you think he would still have the guts to fight Lung Tao? For him to be able to rise to the 1st rank, he is indeed a legendary figure. Lung Ying said with a smile, I would like to see what he looks like. He is so powerful. His looks are ordinary. I can't tell what's so great about him. Lu Yurong shook her head lightly and said regretfully, Now that Qin Kong, that old man, is out, Lung Tao will have to retreat. King Cheng won't let it go. Consort Lu said. He slapped Lung Tao and also Prince Cheng's face. With his temper, he will definitely seek revenge from Chu Li. I'm afraid that Chu Li has something up his sleeves and is not afraid of Prince Cheng. The 2 imperial residences have fallen out anyway. Whether or not Lung Tao is beaten up, Prince Cheng will still find trouble with the imperial residents of Princeton. They can't avoid it. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, Chu Li's calculations are very precise. He knows how to take advantage of others. Since they're enemies, it doesn't matter whether he offends them or not. With this slap, he established his authority. Let's see which disciple of the imperial residence dares to be presumptuous in front of him. That's true. Princess Lu nodded. This little guy's scheming is really deep, not inferior to you, Yurong. Lu Yurong scoffed. You have to be careful when talking to him. Princess Lu chuckled. I'm not that good. Auntie, you'll know in the future. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, I'm not exaggerating at all. You must be careful of this guy. Uncle-in-law must also be careful of him. Don't worry. He's from the imperial residence of King Yin. He has nothing to do with us. Consort Lu smiled. Lu Yurong scoffed. That might not be the case. Princeton is not someone who will settle down. He's jumping? Princess Lu shook her head and said, Not just based on my previous contribution. Lu Yurong shook her head. Prince Cheng is really messing around. Which of the officials in the court are fools? How can I not see it? Sooner or later, we'll be exposed. King Cheng is surrounded by martial arts masters. He doesn't have many strategists. Princess Lu smiled. Moreover, with his personality, he will do whatever he wants and will not listen to anyone else's advice. I think Qin Kong has already tried to persuade him, but he did not listen. But there are benefits to messing around. Everyone will be tolerant and let him do whatever he wants. Prince Cheng's move is ruthless enough. Lu Yurong smiled and said. He admitted that he was fooling around, but it also weakened Prince N's contribution. After that incident, Prince Cheng confessed that he caught those children and wanted to sell a favor to the people. It was all a joke and a farce from the beginning. The chancellors were furious at the time, but when they thought about it later, their children were all fed good food and drank well. All of them had grown fat and would eventually return safely. Hence, King N's rescue was not that important anymore. Everyone was no longer as grateful towards King N's rescue. Those who were secretly determined to repay him, their thoughts faded. I think it was Chun Kong's idea. Consort Lu shook her head and smiled. Prince Cheng is quite clever. This move is indeed vicious. The 2 of them talked and discussed the grudges between Prince and Prince Cheng. Lung Ying was confused and quickly changed the topic. Cousin sister, can you beat Chu Li? Of course. Lu Yurong smiled. Then do you want to beat him up? Lung Ying asked. Depend on my mood. Lu Yurong smiled and became more and more flirtatious. If he makes me unhappy, I'll teach him a lesson. If he doesn't, I'll let him go this time. Lung Ying pursed her lips and smiled. What are you laughing at, you little girl? Lu Yurong glared at her. What's so funny? Lung Ying quickly said, I'm happy for cousin sister. She couldn't tell her cousin sister to stop bragging. If she really did that, would Chu Li dare to go against her? He would have been well-behaved long ago. Lu Yurong had the ability to see through people's hearts. She saw through Lung Ying's thoughts and smiled. Little girl, wait for me to teach Chu Li a lesson. All right, I'll wait and see. Lung Ying smiled. Let's hurry up. Consort Lu smiled. The three women galloped on their horses. A group of maids and protectors followed closely behind. The rumbling of the horses was loud. After Chu Li and the others galloped for a while, they slowed down. They were worried that Xiao Shi's body could not take it. Head chief, you beat up Ling Tao. You'll anger ninth uncle. Lung Xiao was a little worried. It feels good, but it'll be troublesome. She was the happiest watching. She wished that she was the one who did it. But when she thought of Prince Cheng's craziness, she was a little worried. Chu Li smiled. Whether I hit Lung Tao or not, Prince Cheng still wants to teach me a lesson. There's no difference. Prince Cheng might not have been so impatient before. Now he must be eager to kill you. Xiao Shi smiled faintly, but this slap was really satisfying. You should be taught a lesson like this. Chu Li smiled. Next time we meet, I'll give him another one. He slapped Lung Tao. First, it was because Lung Tao was rude to Xiao Shi. Second, it was because he slapped Lung Xiao. As a man, he hit a delicate woman. There was nothing much to say. He just had to return the favor. That was already considered a light punishment. Song Luiying said, but Lung Tao really deserves a beating. He's stubborn. It's useless no matter how hard he hits. Xuaningyu shook her head. Prince Cheng also hit him many times. The more he hits him, the more stubborn he becomes. Xiao Shi said, will Consort Jing come this time? Probably. Xuaningyu smiled. Consort Lu especially likes to join in on the fun. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. What's the connection between Consort Lu and the Rin public house? Could it be the lady of the High Duke's public house? King Jing's succession was very popular. But if he married the lady of the High Duke's public house, it would not be so popular. Consort Lu and the Rin public house are from the same family, but not from the same branch. She's the daughter of Assistant Minister Lu. Xuaningyu said, I heard that she doesn't have a good relationship with the Rin public house. They had a falling out. What about Lu Yurong? Chu Li asked, what's the connection between Lu Yurong and Consort Lu? He had been looking into this matter. He always felt that Lu Yurong's shadow was in the fairy's capital. Song Luiying said, not many people know about this. Lu Yurong and Consort Jing are distant relatives. Not many people know that Lu Yurong lived in Consort Lu's house for a few years when she was young. The Rin public house and Assistant Minister Lu are estranged, but Lu Yurong and Consort Lu are very close. I see. Chu Li suddenly realized. Chapter 399. The sound of horse hooves could be heard. Chu Li saw Lu Yurong, and the others were a mile behind him. Behind Lu Yurong and the others, 3 horses were chasing after them. These 3 horses were exceptionally handsome. Their fur shone under the sun as if they were wearing silk. As they galloped, their strength and speed were perfectly coordinated. Their muscles formed a smooth picture. In the blink of an eye, the 3 horses were in front of Lu Yurong and the others. A rider rode beside them while the other 2 retreated to the back. The rider who rode beside them was a handsome young man. His eyes were bright, and his chest was slightly puffed up. He was high-spirited and arrogant. Brother, Lung Ying smiled. Didn't you leave first? I was delayed. The handsome young man smiled and turned to Lu Yurong. How is cousin's sister? Lu Yurong glanced at him. She's fine. Thank you for your concern. Cousin's sister, how long are you planning to stay in the fairy's capital? The handsome young man was still smiling. My sister and mother miss you very much. There's nothing going on at the public house. Why not stay for a while? We'll see. Lu Yurong replied coldly. Princess Lu smiled. Look at you. You only care about talking to Yurong. We girls should go our own way. You should go your own way. Don't stick with women. You're useless. Mother, I'll accompany you. Lung Feng smiled. I haven't seen cousin sister for a long time. I want to chat more. We'll talk when we get back to the public house. Princess Lu smiled. Yurong will stay for a few days. There will be opportunities to talk. Go. All right then. Lung Feng looked at Lu Yurong helplessly. He saw that her charming face was calm. Her eyes were like autumn water as she looked into the distance. He felt melancholy and nostalgia. Lung Tao was hit by ninth uncle again. Lung Ying smiled. Brother, it's not ninth uncle. It's Chuli. Chuli? Lung Feng frowned. The Chuli who is known as the youngest rank 1 scribe. Yes, it's him. Lung Ying smiled and said, he gave Brother Tao a slap. Brother Tao is furious. He wants to settle the score with Chuli. Him. Lung Feng snorted. Lung Ying pursed her lips and smiled. He even made a bet with my cousin's sister, saying that he would beat Chu Li until he begs for mercy. If he couldn't do it, he would avoid my cousin's sister and not let her see him. Lung Feng turned his head to look at Lu Yurong and scoffed. This Chu Li is really arrogant. Lung Tao is the imperial crown prince after all. He beat him up as he pleases. He doesn't respect ninth uncle, and he doesn't respect us crown princes either. Lung Ying smiled and said, cousin sister said that Chu Li did it on purpose. Since he's ninth uncle's rival, there's no point in currying favor with him, so he might as well make a move. It's also a reminder to the other imperial princes not to provoke him. Oh, that's true. Lung Feng pondered for a moment before nodding his head. Looks like this fellow is indeed very scheming. However, he's too arrogant to try and intimidate our crown prince. He doesn't even put the emperor in his eyes. All right, go do what you have to do. Princess Lu waved her hand and said, don't go and provoke him. There's really no need to make such an opponent for no reason. Let's see what your ninth uncle is capable of. Yes, mother. Lung Feng looked at Lu Yurong helplessly, but in his heart, he was eager to try. If he could not suppress this Chu Li, how could he show off his abilities? Moreover, this Chu Li had defeated cousin's sister several times. He had to help her vent her anger. Lu Yurong seemed to not feel his gaze and looked into the distance as if nothing had happened. She did not seem to be looking at Lung Feng, but was secretly observing him. She knew that he wanted to cause trouble for Chu Li. She sighed secretly. Compared to Chu Li, who was cunning and cunning, Lung Feng was like a reckless young man. They were a generation apart. Although she had dealt with Chu Li a few times, she still felt like there was a layer of fog when she looked at him. She could not see him clearly no matter how hard she tried. Lung Feng, on the other hand, could see him clearly with one glance. It was as if he was looking at the water in a river. Cousin sister, I'll leave first. Lung Feng closed fist saluted. Lu Yurong closed fist saluted and nodded, her expression cold. Although Lung Feng had seen it many times, he still felt melancholy and depressed. However, he did not show it on his face. Go. He urged the horse to gallop away. Two middle-aged riders followed closely behind him. Looking at his gradually disappearing figure, Princess Lu shook her head and sighed. This brat, he's digging his own grave. Lung Ying smiled. Cousin sister, isn't it good to be my sister-in-law? Lu Yurong chuckled. I don't have such luck. Lung Ying said, why not? Isn't my big brother good? His martial arts is good. He looks good, and his personality is good too. I think he's much better than the other imperial princes. The martial arts that I cultivate cannot marry. Lu Yurong shook her head and smiled. If I marry, I'll be harming myself and others. Do you understand? If that's the case. Lung Ying looked at Princess Lu doubtfully. Princess Lu sighed and nodded. The martial arts that your cousin's sister cultivates is strange. Indeed, she cannot marry. She has no fate with your big brother. Then big brother is doomed. Lung Ying sighed. He's always thinking about cousin's sister. Princess Lu shook her head. Your big brother knows about this, but he doesn't want to give up. Let him be. Big brother knows about this too. Lung Ying was getting more and more curious. She found it hard to understand. What is big brother thinking? He clearly knew that they could not be together, but he couldn't let it go. He kept moving forward without caring about anything else. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? She shook her head in disapproval. Princess Lu said, Feng is not a child anymore. Just don't mess around. Lu Yurong said helplessly, Aunt, I think it's better if I don't come often. Princess Lu smiled. He will only think about you if you don't come often. When he sees you more, naturally he won't be so obsessed. He has to go through this on his own. But don't worry, young people don't grow up. He won't have the chance to see pretty girls. This time, when he returns to the fairies' capital and sees more beauties, he will change his mind. Oh, right. Big Brother is like this because he has always been at the border. There are no beauties there. Lung Ing smiled. Lu Yurong sighed and said slowly, Men are all petty. I hope we don't become enemies. Bones are connected by tendons. We are a family. Princess Lu smiled. Chu Li saw Lung Feng and the other two heading towards him. Their horses were very handsome, and they were galloping at full speed. Chu Li and the others were jogging. In just a short while, they were close. Nay, the three horses slowed down and ran side by side with them. Greetings, Princess Song, Princess Shui. Lung Feng closed fists saluted and smiled. Song Luing and Xuaning nodded and smiled. Lung Feng's gaze landed on Xiao Shi's face and brightened. He closed fists saluted. Are you the new third aunt? Xiao Shi nodded and looked at him. Lung Feng tried his best to look away from her face and looked at Chu Li. This must be the famous head chief Chu in the fairies' capital. Chu Li knew he wanted to provoke him. He closed fists, saluted, and smiled. Greetings, Crown Prince Feng. Chapter 400. Chu Li smiled. Is Prince Feng going to seek justice for Lung Tao? Lung Feng looked at him calmly. Even though you're a rank 1, he's still the imperial crown prince. You're disrespecting the imperial family by doing this. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Crown Prince Feng, I dare not accept your words. No matter how arrogant I am, I would not dare to disrespect the emperor. However, I really cannot respect Lung Tao. Crown Prince Feng, do you know that he actually hit Lady Qiu? Lung Feng frowned and looked at Ling Qiu. Ling Qiu puffed out her chest and scoffed. He slapped me during the hunting ceremony last month. The head chief taught him a lesson on my behalf. Brother Feng, are you going to stand up for that bastard? Lung Feng snorted and said, he shouldn't have hit people, but no matter what, he's still an imperial heir. Chu Li furrowed his brows and said, Imperial Crown Prince Feng, according to what you're saying, ordinary people can be beaten up, but not the Imperial Crown Prince. Because of his noble birth, the Imperial Crown Prince can't be beaten up, right? What do you mean by that? Lung Feng frowned and glared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li said, Crown Prince Feng, let's not talk about the fact that he's an Imperial Crown Prince. He's not even a prince. Even if a prince made a mistake, he would still be punished. Do you think that just because he's an Imperial Crown Prince, everyone has to give in to you? Ha! If the Imperial Crown Princes can really do this, then there's no need for the Ji Dynasty's army to fight at the borders, and there's no need for the Ji Dynasty's High Duke's public house to fight with the martial arts world's magnates. A few of the Imperial Crown Princes can just go around the Ji Dynasty and the world will be at peace. How fortunate! You. Lung Feng's handsome face darkened. Chu Li said, the great Ji Dynasty was conquered by the founding father and the High Duke's public houses. The previous emperors and High Dukes worked hard for the great Ji Dynasty and fought with their lives on the line. What about you Imperial Princes? He hadn't even entered the Imperial Court yet, but he already wanted to act like a tyrant and run amok. What would happen in the future? The Imperial Crown Prince? Why couldn't the Imperial Crown Prince be beaten? Crown Prince Feng, if you dare to say these words in front of King Jing, I will admire your courage. Lung Feng's handsome face darkened as he stared coldly at Chu Li. Chu Li said faintly, I believe that Crown Prince Feng has also gone to the frontier to train. I wonder what kind of meritorious service he has achieved. What rank have you accumulated? Lung Feng gritted his teeth, his mouth filled with bitterness. As an imperial heir, after entering the border army, he indeed received preferential treatment. However, no matter how much preferential treatment was given, his contributions to the border army were only limited to a few small battles. Without a great battle, how could there be any great merits? He had only accumulated merits to rank 8. Chu Li was about the same age as him, but he had already reached the first rank. The gap between them was like the clouds and the mud. If he was not the crown prince, he would not even have the right to speak to Chu Li. Chu Li said faintly, Imperial Crown Prince Feng is the crown prince. Of course, he's wise and mighty. I'm sure he's made many great contributions. Oomph. Lung Feng took a deep breath and snorted, "Forget it. In any case, you hit Lung Tao. That's wrong. Prince Feng, you want to say that I offended my superior, right?" Chu Li calmly said, "Crown Prince Feng, I, Chu Li, am a citizen of the great Ji dynasty, an official of the emperor, not a servant of the Long clan. As a rank one, what's wrong with me beating up a crown prince?" Lung Feng could only feel his body trembling. His fists were itching, but he knew that he could not hit him. Chu Li calmly looked at Lung Feng. "Crown Prince Feng, Prince Jing is wise and mighty. He will inherit the throne in the future and become the emperor. I advise you to be careful with your words and actions. Don't bring shame to Prince Jing. Honest words are unpleasant to the ear. I hope Crown Prince Feng will not take offense." After he said that, he closed fists saluted, "Forgive me for not sending you off." Lung Feng was furious. His face was burning and his chest was boiling with anger. He wanted to punch Chu Li's face into pieces. However, he knew that he would not be able to win against Chu Li if he did it himself. All right. Lung Feng was so angry that he laughed. His face darkened. Lung Feng has learned his lesson. Farewell. He closed fists saluted towards Xiao Shi, Song Luiying, and Xuan Yu. His expression softened a little, and he urged his horse to leave. "Chu Li, you're straightforward with your words." Xiao Shi shook her head and laughed. "But there's no need to offend him like that. We still have to give face to the crown prince. If he wants face, of course we'll give it to him." Chu Li smiled. "Ignorant child. How dare he talk so big? He keeps saying that he's using the imperial family to oppress others. If I don't teach him a lesson, he won't know what's good for him. He was from the House of High Dukes. He was not on good terms with the princes. With the House of High Dukes backing him up, he did not need to put on airs with the princes. He's the crown prince of King Jing." Xiao Shi shook her head. "Isn't he afraid of offending King Jing?" Chu Li said, "If King Jing only has this much tolerance, then so be it." "Head chief, you're still calling him an ignorant child." Lung Xiao smiled. "You're not that old. But Lung Feng isn't a bad person. He's just a little arrogant and doesn't really care about others." "Yes, Lung Feng thinks highly of himself." Song Luiying smiled. "He considers himself to be the future prince, or even the future emperor." Xuan Yu shook her head. "It's better not to offend Lung Feng if we can." Chu Li sighed. "We're destined to be rivals." Xuan Yu looked at him in confusion. Before Chu Li could say anything, he heard the sound of horse hooves behind him. As the ground trembled, a group of people approached with loud rumbles. "Oh, if it isn't Head Chief Chu." Lu Yurong smiled and raised her voice. "We meet again." Chu Li closed fists saluted, "Lady Lu." Lu Yurong smiled like a flower, bright like a pearl. She looked at Xiao Shi. "Princess Xiao." Xiao Shi said, "I didn't expect to see Lady Lu. I came to join the fun." Lu Yurong smiled. "Princess Xiao, I heard that you've been injured. I didn't expect you to come out too." "I came out to relax," Xiao Shi said. When the two women stood together, they were like two beautiful, fresh flowers. They were like two dazzling pearls. It was hard to tell which one was more beautiful and which one was brighter. Chu Li said, "Young Master Feng came to question me about hurting Lung Tao. It was Lady Lu's doing, right?" "You have wronged me," Lu Yurong said with a smile. "Cousin brother is not someone who can be easily controlled by others. Instead, Head Chief should be careful. Don't make too many enemies and die a horrible death." "Thank you for your concern, Lady Lu." Chu Li closed fists saluted. "I'm living a free life. Head Chief, if my son has offended you, please don't lower yourself to his level." Princess Lu pursed her lips and smiled. "Princess Xiao is indeed the first beauty of the great Ji dynasty. His Highness King and is really lucky." Xiao Shi smiled and nodded. Chu Li closed fists saluted. "Princess Lu, I'm sorry. I'm straightforward and won't beat around the bush. I directly rebuked Crown Prince Feng. I hope he doesn't mind. He just came back from the frontier. He hasn't calmed down yet. He's hot-tempered, and it's inevitable that he'll speak rashly." Princess Lu smiled calmly. "Young people are hot-tempered. It's normal to quarrel. There's no need to hold a grudge." Chu Li smiled. "Of course. How long will Lady Lu be staying in the fairies' capital? Why? You want me to leave as soon as possible? Lu Yurong smiled. Chu Li said, I have something to ask Lady Lu. If you have something to say it now. Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li nodded. All right. Lu Yurong turned her head and said, Aunt, I have something to say to Chu Li. You guys go first. I'll catch up later. All right. Princess Lu smiled. Chapter 401. Chu Li and Lu Yurong were at the back. Co Shi and consort Lu gathered together and slowly moved forward. Only Lung Ying and Lung Qiu glanced back curiously from time to time. Their gazes lingered on the two of them. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that the two of them had an ambiguous relationship. Tell me, what is it? Lu Yurong stopped smiling and looked at him coldly. There's nothing to talk about between us. The cooperation between the two had ended. Even if they restrained their subordinates from fighting each other, they did not turn enemies into friends. They were just using each other and keeping their guard up against each other. Chu Li said, Do you know that Prince and is an isolated cultivation? Isolated cultivation? Lu Yurong frowned. Her watery eyes flashed. Isolated cultivation for what? Chu Li smiled. Why would he do that? He's cultivating. He wants to heal himself? Lu Yurong frowned. My inner energy is not that easy to get rid of. Chu Li shook his head. Miss Lu, you're too arrogant. Prince N's injuries have healed for a long time. Now that he's in isolated cultivation, he's going to kill us. Impossible. Lu Yurong scoffed. Chu Li said, He's already started cultivating the Azura power technique. Miss Lu, your family is very knowledgeable. You should have heard of it, right? Azura power technique. Lu Yurong muttered. The Azura power technique is an inheritance sealed by the Tempest Temple. It's very murderous, Chu Li said. I remember now. Lu Yurong's expression changed. How did he get it from the Imperial House, right? Chu Li said, No matter where it came from, his cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. Your inner energy has long been expelled. The Azura power technique progresses very quickly. As long as you can control the killing intent, you can obtain unparalleled power. Lu Yurong looked at him. You didn't stop him. I couldn't. Chu Li sighed. I was lucky to be able to escape from him. He wants to kill me, so he went into isolated cultivation. When he comes out, it'll be the moment he takes my life. Then you're in danger. Lu Yurong smiled faintly. Chu Li said, Do you think he'll let you go? After he kills me, it'll be your turn. Plus, it's not that easy for me to die. Even King Jing can't save you. You've underestimated King Jing. I've spoken to the monks from the Tempest Temple about this. The Tempest Temple is very wary of the Azura power technique. Once it's mastered, no one can stop it, Chu Li said. Even an enlightened master might not be able to kill it. You sure have a lot of connections. Lu Yurong snorted sarcastically. You even managed to hook up with the Tempest Temple? Aren't they after you? I'm best at working with opponents. Chu Li smiled. Just like the two of us. Although we're opponents, it doesn't mean that we can't work together. Lu Yurong looked at him coldly. You want to join forces with me to fight against King Yin? Chu Li shook his head. If we want to deal with King Yin, we can only rely on the Tempest Temple. Lu Yurong frowned at him and nodded slowly. She was extremely intelligent and naturally understood Chu Li's concerns. The emperor was an enlightened master, so he would never allow his son to be harmed by others. Even if his son cultivated the Azura power technique, he was still his son. If the two of them really succeeded and killed King, and they would not be able to live either. The Tempest Temple had an enlightened master that could go against the emperor. So to eliminate King, and they still needed to rely on the Tempest Temple. Then why are you telling me all this? Lu Yurong asked. Chu Li smiled. Lu Yurong snorted. Don't be so secretive. Tell me. Chu Li smiled. Do I need to say it out loud? How would I know if you don't tell me? Lu Yurong said impatiently. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. Let's go. Chu Li said, I know that Miss Lu has connections in the Tempest Temple. Lu Yurong frowned slightly and stared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li smiled. Miss Lu, use your connections and help push them so that they can make a move as soon as possible. The Tempest Temple is a big family with a lot of assets. They are slow in their actions. Don't wait for them to arrive, and King will already be out of isolated cultivation. Who can control the Tempest Temple's business? Lu Yurong rolled her eyes at him. Is the Azura power technique really that powerful? Chu Li said, you should have heard of it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it for myself. Lu Yurong said, can it really suppress me? Don't tell me you're using someone else to kill me. That's what you're best at. Same here. Chu Li smiled. Both of them were good at playing tricks. They were both good at using someone else's strength to do their dirty work. He looked left and right and said, Miss Lu, why don't we have a fight? You want to fight me? Lu Yurong looked him up and down and smiled. Forget it. Don't embarrass yourself. Other than your light body technique, you can run if you can't win. What else do you have? Chu Li said, I've fought Kingen before. It was a draw. After this isolated cultivation, he will be able to suppress me. If you can't defeat me, then you'll die. Those who cultivate the Azura power technique will not be soft-hearted. They won't let you go just because you're a beauty. All right, let's do it. Lu Yurong scoffed. Both of them leaped off their horses at the same time and landed in the forest. The soldiers standing on both sides of the road looked straight ahead. Chu Li's glance sent chills down their spines. It was their instinct for danger. They did not understand what Chu Li and Lu Yurong were talking about, but they knew that they could not spread a word. Pretending to be deaf was the best way to survive. Both of them landed in a dense forest. Lu Yurong did not hold back. She activated the Empyrean fairy power and pressed her palm down lightly. Her inner energy was contained, but not released. Her jade-like hand instantly reached Chu Li's chest. It was silent, without a trace. Chu Li reached out, and their palms collided. Bang! Both of them released their inner energy at the same time. When their palms collided, a thunderous sound was heard. Lu Yurong's jade-like hand contained a powerful force. Chu Li thought to himself, if it was before he started cultivating the heavenly demonic power, he would not be Lu Yurong's opponent. Her cultivation level was indeed shocking. He tightened his fingers and grabbed Lu Yurong's hand. Suddenly, a thin layer of anger covered Lu Yurong's face. She scoffed and did not try to break free. She released her inner energy without mercy. However, Chu Li held onto her hand firmly. The surging inner energy was like a clay ox entering the sea. It was silent, and there was not a single ripple. It was as if the inner energy had disappeared into thin air and did not hit him. Lu Yurong frowned and stared at him. She thought that the inner energy came from the Empyrean fairy power was pure and strange. A Grandmaster would not be able to withstand it. It was a power that came from the void. It was pure and powerful. But looking at Chu Li, he did not react to the inner energy. It was obvious that he had dissolved it. Since when did he have such cultivation level? Chu Li shook his head and said, this cultivation level is no threat to Princeton. The heavenly demonic power returned to his chest. It swallowed the inner energy of the Empyrean fairy power in one gulp. It was very satisfied. It was a rare pure energy. It was a great tonic for it. Chu Li was also satisfied. The inner energy of the Empyrean fairy power could promote his cultivation of the heavenly demonic power. Lu Yurong sneered. Another strange heart technique was activated. A purer and more dangerous inner energy was released from her palm and crashed into Chu Li's meridian. The heavenly demonic power was activated again. The water ball in his chest leaped up and swallowed the inner energy. Chu Li shook his head without changing his expression. Not yet. Forget it. Lu Yurong frowned and looked at him. Chu Li could actually block the Empyrean fairy power. Chapter 402. P.S. The 7th Alliance leader has been born. Flowerbug 007. The Empyrean fairy power was a technique cultivated by the Empyrean fairy. Anyone who cultivated it was destined to be alone for the rest of their life. This was because this technique was extremely Yin and cold. It absorbed the Yin energy of heaven and earth, purifying the body and turning it into a Yin body. Such a body was not something a mortal could have. It was close to the body of an immortal. Such a body was not something a mortal could desecrate, especially a man. Once there was skin contact, he would die. The man's natural disposition was masculine, like a ball of fire. Once he had sexual intercourse with a practitioner of the Empyrean fairy technique, it was as if he had been doused by a heavy downpour. No matter how fierce the fire was, it could not withstand it. Liu Yurong was surrounded by women, and they all cultivated the beauty power. Because of this, if a man was around, even if there was no skin contact, his yang energy would be damaged and his body would become weak. She was also used to being surrounded by women. She was not used to the smell of men and was extremely disgusted. This was also because of the Empyrean fairy power. It was like water seeing fire, inexplicably disgusted. Chu Li grabbed her hand. Her expression did not change, but she was furious and wanted to kill him. She did not hold back and activated the inner energy of the Empyrean fairy power to attack Chu Li. However, Chu Li did not react. The inner energy of the Empyrean fairy power could not hurt him. This was out of her expectation. It also reminded her of a story about the Empyrean fairy power. Among the descendants of the Empyrean fairy power, they all lived their lives alone. However, there was one exception. Only one of the descendants found her man and stayed with him for the rest of her life. This was even more luck than obtaining the inheritance of the Empyrean fairy power. Such a man was hard to find. First, he was not afraid of the Empyrean fairy power. Second, he could break her heart. The Empyrean fairy power was easy to break, but the Empyrean fairy power was difficult. She had a clear understanding of this. When she saw a man, not only did she not feel happy, but she felt disgusted. She forcefully suppressed it, but it cannot be seen on the surface. To break the heart of the Empyrean fairy was no different from changing the world. Making a woman who liked women and hated men fall in love with a man was no different from making a man change his sexual orientation. Whenever she saw Chu Li, she would feel the same disgust. However, due to Chu Li being shrouded in mystery, her curiosity was piqued. Her intense curiosity would occasionally suppress her disgust, but most of the time, it was still disgust. Now that Chu Li had grabbed her hand, it instantly magnified this feeling of disgust. Therefore, she did not hesitate to kill him, but she did not expect the Empyrean fairy power to lose its power and was unable to hurt him. She was in a daze, deep in thought. It seemed that in this world, there really was a man who was not afraid of her Empyrean fairy power. This was the first time she had encountered such a man. She had thought that this story was just a legend, an illusory comfort and hope for the successor of the Empyrean fairy power. Unfortunately, even if he was not afraid of her Empyrean fairy technique, he could not change his nature of hating men. Chu Li smiled. Miss Liu, although your Empyrean fairy power is powerful, it's not invincible. Invincible? Liu Yurong glared at him. For a man, this is invincible. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Then it's my turn. The water ball fell into her heart. In an instant, her blood flowed like a raging river. Endless power was transferred to her body by the blood. He swung his hand, and Liu Yurong was instantly sent flying. She was like a helpless doll. Liu Yurong quickly activated the Empyrean fairy power. Just as she was about to dissipate the power, a white shadow flashed in front of her. Chu Li's aura approached and punched her shoulder. Bang! She felt like she was a small boat in the raging waves. Resistance was useless. The Empyrean fairy power could only protect her body from injury, but it could not change the direction of her body. She was sent flying at an even faster speed. Bang! She crashed into a tree. Her back was in pain, and her internal organs were in turmoil. She quickly channeled to neutralize the pain, and at the same time, she was prepared for another surprise attack from Chu Li. As soon as she thought of this, a white shadow flashed in front of her. Chu Li's fist was enlarged in front of her again. She used all her strength to dodge to the left. Bang! With a muffled sound, the pine tree behind her swayed and then slowly fell backwards. Chu Li's punch broke the pine tree that was as thick as her waist. She fully activated the Empyrean fairy power and did not dare to hold back. However, she realized that Chu Li had already stopped and was looking at her with a smile. She was extremely angry and stared at Chu Li coldly. Chu Li smiled. Miss Lu, how was that? You do have some skills. Lu Yurong laughed coldly. Just now, he was really powerful and she was no match for him. She felt that Chu Li must have used a secret skill to activate his potential, so he could only be powerful for a while. Even so, it was still shocking enough that she might not be able to handle it. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Once Princeton uses the Azura power technique, he will also have this kind of power. Miss Lu, don't underestimate him. Lu Yurong frowned. Is the Azura power technique that powerful? Chu Li smiled. When have I ever lied to you? Lu Yurong scoffed and did not refute. Chu Li could cover up his words, but he would never lie to her. This was also the reason why she dared to cooperate with him. Lu Yurong said slowly, if that's the case, the Tempest Temple really needs to act faster, but they might not be effective. Chu Li said, for other things, the Tempest Temple may turn a blind eye and not fight with the Emperor, but this is not a small matter. The Tempest Temple will not give in and will definitely send someone to the fairy's capital. All right, I will give it a push, Lu Yurong said lightly. Chu Li, since when did you collude with the Tempest Temple? Chu Li smiled without saying anything. Lu Yurong said, is it the guy who eats human brains by the riverside? Chu Li's eyebrows twitched. He was surprised that she knew about this even with her sharp informant. Only Fa Yuan and the others knew about this. Even Elder Gui and the others did not know. It was almost impossible for the secret to be leaked. Lu Yurong scoffed. You're really powerful. You can cooperate with the Tempest Temple. If the public house knew about this, I wonder what the consequences will be. Chu Li laughed. Miss Lu understands. This is not a threat to me. Anyway, be careful. Lu Yurong pouted her red lips. She felt resentful and hated Chu Li even more. Every time she fought with him, she would always be at a disadvantage. This made her extremely angry, and she always wanted to get back at him. Chu Li pointed at her shoulder. Miss Lu, please forgive me. Your clothes. Lu Yurong looked down. There was a fist hole on her left shoulder. It was caused by Chu Li's punch just now. It tore her clothes apart as if it was branded by a soldering iron. She frowned and looked at the skin that was vaguely exposed. It was like white jade and was not injured. Chu Li coughed. Why don't I find a set of clothes? Where? Lu Yurong stared at him unhappily. Chu Li said, wait. Chapter 4:03. Co Shi's figure was similar to Lu Yurong's. He was holding Co Shi's gown. Get out. Lu Yurong took it and said angrily. Chu Li coughed softly. Then I'll go out and help you keep a lookout in case someone comes over. Hurry up. Lu Yurong did not even look at him. Chu Li shook his head. He did not want to lower himself to her level. He floated out of the dense forest and received 2 horses from Soldier. He nodded in thanks. After a while, it was still not over. He felt strange, but he still did not use the omniscient mirror. He handed the 2 horses over to the soldiers and entered the forest, only to meet Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong had changed into a bluish-white gown. It was different from the bluish-white gown that she was originally wearing. It was simple and elegant. She was the same as Co Shi. Once she changed her clothes, she would have a different temperament. Lu Yurong saw him staring at her, and she did not hide the disgust in her heart. She glared at him and walked out of the forest. Chu Li did not mind Lu Yurong's expression of disgust. He knew that Lu Yurong liked women. He simply admired her beauty and never had any other thoughts. The sound of horse hooves could be heard in front of them. Lung Ying and Lung Xiao were galloping over on their horses when they saw the 2 of them coming out from the forest. The 2 of them rode their horses closer and looked at the 2 of them with surprise. Chu Li glanced at Lung Xiao and Lung Ying and nodded. He took the reins from the soldier. Why are you back? Mother and the others were worried, so they asked me to come and take a look. What are you busy with? As Lung Xiao spoke, her bright eyes darted back and forth between Chu Li and Lu Yurong, trying to figure out something. Cousin, why did you change your clothes? Lung Ying asked in surprise. She was observant and could tell that Lu Yurong was not wearing the same clothes as before. Chu also copied the color of the clothes to prevent others from noticing. But he couldn't hide it from Long Ying. Lu Yurong blushed and scoffed. What change of clothes? I didn't change. Long Ying pointed at her willowy waist and said with a smile, Cousin, your clothes clearly have a flower here, not this bird. Young? Gather? Philostiques lanceolata, don't pick up you Yao Huang, tu che mo xian to ridicule Zheng. Stop? Spoiled childish? Kueishi temple? Oyster cutlet, however. Lung Ying did not follow them. Instead, she sized Chu up. Chu smiled as he looked at Long Ying. Miss Ying, what can I do for you? Do you like my cousin? Long Ying's jade-like face was taut as she snorted and asked. Chu Li shook his head. Miss Ying, you've misunderstood. There's no romantic relationship between us. Long Ying snorted. Don't think that I don't know these things just because I'm young. Can't you see that my cousin's face is red? Why did you two go into the forest? Lung Chio's eyes widened. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Miss Ying, you've really misunderstood. Miss Lu and I are not friends. We're rivals. We entered the forest just now to learn from each other's martial arts. After a round, why did you change your clothes? It's because I tore her clothes. It would be weird if I believed you. Lung Ying's pretty face tensed up as she curled her lips. Your fight is different from the fight we're talking about, right? Lung Ying, Lung Xiao called out with a red face. Chu Li could not help but laugh as he sized up Lung Ying. Not to be outdone, Lung Ying glared at him and scoffed. What are you looking at? Don't think that I don't know. Chu Li smiled. I didn't expect Miss Ying to know so much. In short, you and my cousin are different. My big brother likes my cousin, you can't. Lung Ying snorted. Chu Li flipped over and got on the horse. Why can't I? My cousin and my cousin have been childhood friends, and they have a good relationship. No wonder they suddenly became cold these 2 years. It's because of you. Lung Ying scoffed. You're the one who destroyed my cousin and my big brother's relationship. Chu Li looked at her innocent face. She looked cute even when she was angry. He smiled. Who can decide the relationship between a man and a woman? Everyone has no choice but to do so. Your cousin is the same. My cousin has really fallen for you. Lung Ying was initially just bluffing. She was just suspicious. She felt that with her cousin's personality, she would not fall for a man so easily. She did not expect Chu Li to suddenly say such a thing. Chu Li shook his head. No. Lung Ying frowned and stared at him. If Chu Li said that he liked her, she would be suspicious. Since Chu Li said so, she believed that the two of them really had feelings for each other. Chu Li said, It's best that you don't tell your parents or your big brother about what happened today. Otherwise, your cousin will be put in a difficult position. You can't just not marry your big brother, right? I won't hide it from my big brother and my parents. Lung Ying scoffed. Chu Li smiled. Miss Ying, you should know that my light body technique is not bad. If you really tell them, don't blame me for being rude. How are you going to be rude? Lung Ying scoffed. Chu Li said, How about I throw a worm on your bed? You. Lung Ying was shocked. The thought of a worm crawling on her bed made her whole body numb. Chu Li had already activated the omniscient mirror. He knew that she was most afraid of worms, so he wanted to scare her. Looking at her pale face, he inexplicably wanted to laugh. It was really interesting. Lung Xiao scoffed. Head chief. Chu Li chuckled. All right, I was just joking. Miss Ying, please don't mind. What joke? Lung Ying hurriedly asked. Chu Li smiled. Don't worry, I really don't have an affair with Miss Lu. The heart technique she cultivated made her not like men. So, you don't have to worry about your big brother. Not like men. It was the second time Lung Ying heard about her cousin's heart technique. Chu Li said, her heart technique is strange and very overbearing. If a man gets close to her, once they touch skin to skin, he will die. The heart technique also made her instinctively hate men, just like how you hate worms. If you want your big brother's good, don't let him get close to Lu Yurong. Otherwise, he will be asking for trouble. Really? Lung Ying frowned. Chu Li smiled. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lu Yurong. No wonder. Lung Ying was a little surprised. Thinking back to the time when she interacted with her cousin, it seemed that she really did not get close to men. There were only women around her. Even her scribes and protectors did not have men. So it was because of this, Chu Li said, "We should go too." Lung Ying turned her head and stared at him. "You fought with my cousin. Who won?" Chu Li smiled. "What do you think? My cousin's martial arts is very powerful." Lung Ying scoffed. She thought about her cousin's expression and vaguely felt that her cousin might have lost. Or else her cousin would have mocked Chu Li. Her cousin's angry look earlier was probably because she really lost to Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and nodded. The three of them galloped on their horses and quickly caught up with Xiao Shi and the others. Lu Yurong was already riding side by side with Consort Lu. She did not even look at him. Consort Lu's gaze turned to Chu Li and looked at Lung Ying as if nothing had happened. Lung Ying came to the other side of Lu Yurong and secretly looked at her. Lu Yurong scoffed and said in a low voice, "What did Chu Li say to you?" "He said that you lost, cousin." "Cousin, you really can't beat him?" "I can't." "Is he that powerful?" "Tell your big brother not to provoke him." "Big brother won't listen to me." "What are you two whispering about?" Consort Lu smiled. "Watch where you're going." "Mother, I have something to say to my cousin," Lung Ying said in a sweet voice. "You too." Consort Lu shook her head and laughed. She looked at Xiao Shi. Sister Xiao must have seen something embarrassing. Xiao Shi smiled and glanced at Chu Li. Chapter 404. The imperial enclosure was not far from the east gate of the fairy's capital. It was more than 10 miles away. Even if they rode slowly, they would arrive in no time. It was a boundless grassland with a few dense forests in the middle. Everywhere they looked was green and full of life. The grassland scenery was different from the Great Ji dynasty. The imperial princesses liked it and treated the hunting ceremony as a place to relax. However, this was only for the imperial princesses. The imperial princes did not have the leisure to do so. The hunting ceremony was not for the imperial princes to be the hunters and hunt the beasts in the enclosure. It was for the imperial princes to be the prey and the soldiers who had military merits on the battlefield to be the hunters and hunt the imperial princes. The hunting ceremony was not a child's play. It was a real battle. The victor would accumulate military merits, and it would not be inferior to an army in a big battle. This military merit was enough for the soldiers to give their all and disregard everything. As long as they won, it would be better than a battle of life and death. With the military merit, they did not care how powerful the imperial princes were or if he would take revenge on them. They had to take care of what was in front of them first. Moreover, the Great Ji army and even the martial arts world worshipped the strong. The strong were respected. If they could defeat the imperial princes, they could let the imperial princes see their power and remember them. When Chu Li and the others arrived, there were already a few groups of people gathered together. They were chatting and playing. It was very relaxing. When they saw Princess Lu and the others, a few groups of people surrounded them. Princess Lu introduced Xiao Shi to the other princesses. Chu Li stood at the side and did not say anything. He watched Xiao Shi greet the princesses in a natural and unrestrained manner. She was calm and at ease. She was graceful and elegant. In addition to her unparalleled beauty, she made the other women pale in comparison. After exchanging greetings for a while, Xiao Shi seemed to be exhausted. When Consort Lu saw this, she knew that Xiao Shi's injury had yet to heal and her body had yet to fully recover. Hence, she pulled everyone to the side and asked her to rest in the pavilion. Chu Li channeled the wood's spiritual energy into Xiao Shi's body. She was refreshed. Lung Xiao and Lung Qing had already left to find other sisters to play. Only Xiao Shi, the three princesses, Chu Li, Yang Su, and Xue Ling were left. The sound of horse hooves could be heard. Lung Feng brought a few young men and ran towards Chu Li as if they wanted to trample him. Chu Li looked at them calmly. Lung Feng and the others pulled on the reins of their horses, and the 7 horses reared up and stopped in their original spots. Lung Feng and the others sat steadily on the backs of the horses. Lung Feng fist saluted to the 3 ladies. He then looked at Chu Li and said faintly, "Head Chief Chu, let's have some fun together later." Chu Li shook his head. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Crown Prince Feng, but but I'll pass. Head Chief Chu, what's the point of staying in a pile of women? We're all real men who want to do great things. How can we be content in a pile of women and not think about improving ourselves? Lung Feng said calmly. Chu Li said, Prince Feng, Chu Li. My duty is imperial princess. There is no imperial's princess. This is the imperial enclosure. How can there be any danger here? Lung Feng pointed at the surroundings. There are experienced soldiers guarding the place. Even if there are assassins, they won't be able to get in. Head Chief Chu, are you looking down on them? Chu Li frowned and smiled. What do you mean, Prince Feng? Lung Feng's spirit was roused, and he said loudly, even though we also brought guards, once we reach the enclosure, we let them rest. With these elite soldiers guarding, there's no need for these guards. But Chief Chu is following Wang Fei closely with a worried expression. Could it be that he is really afraid that an assassin will break in? That's right. The young men around him chimed in. They were talking absent-mindedly. Their gazes involuntarily drifted towards Sio Shi. They were captivated by Sio Shi's beautiful face. Chu Li smiled. Prince Feng, you've misunderstood. I'm not guarding against an assassin. Lady Sio Shi's injury hasn't healed for a long time. She's still sick. This is a rare opportunity to meet the princesses. That's why I brought her sick body out. Since the maids are there, why do we need a man like you? Lung Feng laughed. Chu Li shook his head. Prince Feng, this is the training ground. It's a rare chance for the princes to experience war. It's not a place for personal battles. Us scribes going up there is against the great ancestors' original intention. Prince Feng, forgive me for not complying. Lung Feng's face darkened. This Chu Li was too cunning. With just a few words, he changed the topic. Unknowingly, he shifted the blame away. He even mocked him and taught him a lesson. How hateful! Suddenly, an enigmatic voice came from the crowd. Are you afraid? Chu Li smiled and looked at Lung Tao. He turned to look at Sio Shi. Lady Sio Shi, let's avoid them. Everyone's attention was involuntarily attracted by Sio Shi. They were absent-minded when they heard Lung Feng and Chu Li. When they saw Chu Li and Sio Shi talking, they became spirited. Sio Shi glanced at the crowd and looked at Lung Feng. Prince Feng, did we women spoil your fun? It's useless to stay with women. It's better for you to stay away from us. Everyone looked at Lung Feng. They couldn't help but blame him for offending a beauty. Lung Feng closed fists saluted and said seriously, Third aunt, you misunderstood. Sio Shi waved her hand and ignored his explanation. I'm tired. I don't have the energy to talk to people. Please. Lung Feng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Sio Shi to be so rude. As the son of King Jing, he was always greeted with a smile wherever he went because of King Jing. Even if there were some who were not flattering, he would not treat them coldly. It made him feel even more uncomfortable to have such a beautiful woman treat him coldly. Sio Shi turned around. Sister Song, Sister Shui, go talk to Consort Lu. I'll go sit in the gazebo. Lung Feng's face turned even uglier. Sio Shi's words were obviously saying that he was a generation younger than her. She was too lazy to talk to him. Chu Li smiled. Consort Lu is very busy. Let's find a place to rest. Very good. Sio Shi nodded lazily. Everyone suddenly felt pity for her. They wished that they were the ones holding her instead of Yang Su and Shui Ling. Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and smiled. Prince Feng, everyone, I'll take my leave first. Lung Tao stood in the crowd and sneered. He continued to speak in a strange tone, trying to escape when you can't win. How impressive. Chu Li didn't even look at him. He went to a gazebo with Sio Shi and the other 4 ladies. Lung Tao said, Brother Feng, this guy is too arrogant. Shut up. Lung Feng glared at him. No matter how angry he was, he could tell that Lung Tao was up to no good. Lung Tao was trying to provoke him and Chu Li to fight. He didn't mind fighting Chu Li, but he didn't want to be used by others. He hated Lung Tao's intentions. Lung Tao touched his nose in embarrassment. He chuckled and said nothing. Lung Tao, didn't you get slapped? Hit him back. Someone laughed. Lung Tao scoffed. If I could beat him, I would have beaten him half to death. Chapter 405. How do we extinguish his arrogance? That's easy. Isn't he good at martial arts? Then let's gather the protectors and surround him. An ordinary-looking young man chuckled and said proudly, "No matter how good he is, can he really fight 10 people at once?" That's a good idea, but we can't say that it's our master's suggestion. We can only say that these protectors are not on good terms with him. They can't stand his arrogant demeanor, so they want to learn from him. If anything happens, it won't be our responsibility. Let the protectors talk to him. Let's see what he can do. Head chief, let's see how impressive he is. That's right. With our status, we'll be flattering him if we stoop to his level. Brother Feng, what do you think? They looked at Lung Feng eagerly. Lung Feng glanced at the crowd and said coldly, "Boring." Lung Tao quickly said, "Brother Feng, don't be a wet blanket. It's not easy to find something fun." That's right. Brother Feng, you don't have to do it. We can do it ourselves. But we have to borrow Brother Feng's 2 protectors and Young Tao's protector Chun. Elder Chun? That won't do. Lung Tao quickly shook his head. Elder Chun won't mess around with me. My words don't matter at all. He only listens to my father, and he even has to control me. Look at you. Someone said, disdainfully, a dignified crown prince is controlled by a protector. You're embarrassing us. What can I do? Lung Tao pouted. Who asked my father to give him so much power? In my opinion, Elder Chun doesn't have to do it. With the few of you protectors together, Chu Li will have a hard time. That's right. The crowd nodded in agreement. They had long been dissatisfied with Chu Li and wanted to take him down a notch. The head chief of the imperial residence of King and was a rank one at such a young age. Although he was promoted from the house of High Dukes and not the imperial court, his position as the head chief of the imperial residence of King and was enough to give him a shocking amount of power. One word from him was more effective than the crown princes like them. To them, who were of noble birth and thought highly of themselves, this was intolerable. Lung Feng snorted and said, "That's enough. All of you are just a bunch of incompetent fools. Brother Feng, don't just pour cold water on us. Give us some ideas, too." Someone shouted, "Everyone will listen to you." That's right, that's right. Brother Feng, this fellow is too arrogant. We need to teach him a lesson. Otherwise, if he tramples on our imperial heirs, how will we have the face to walk around the city in the future? Chu Li's light body technique is top-notch. It doesn't matter how many of you besiege him. Lung Feng said. Then what should we do? Someone asked in confusion. Besieging him won't work, but we can't fight him one-on-one, right? There's a way. Lung Feng faintly said, to deal with Princess Xiao. Princess Xiao, everyone hesitated. Xiao Shi's beautiful face appeared before their eyes. Her eyes were like deep pools as they turned their heads to look at the pavilion in the distance. The women were sitting in the gazebo, while Chu Li stood outside. His white robes fluttered in the wind as he stood there motionlessly, staring at the plains. A strange aura of loneliness emanated from his body. What is this kid doing? How annoying. Someone scoffed in disdain. He's pretending to be profound. Lung Feng said, Princess Xiao is his weakness. We don't have to attack Princess Xiao. As long as we rush towards her, Chu Li will have no choice but to fight. That's a good idea. If we don't teach him a lesson, we won't be able to vent our anger. All right, then we'll gather the protectors together and set up an ambush on the way back. We'll teach him a lesson so that he won't be able to lift his head. That's settled then. Brother Feng, is that okay? Lung Feng faintly said, I didn't hear anything and I don't know anything. Haha. All right, this has nothing to do with Brother Feng. Everyone laughed, but they were secretly cursing. He was really cunning. Whenever something happened, he would shirk responsibility and pretend to be virtuous. Although they criticized him in their hearts, they did not show it and continued to laugh. After all, Chu Li's father was King Jing. They were not capable enough to reincarnate, so they had no choice but to admit it. Chu Li looked at the lively scene and suddenly missed Xiao Qi. He did not know if she was still in isolated cultivation. It was not easy to become an enlightened master, even if she had cultivated the ancient regal sword scripture. He had to work harder too. She had become an enlightened master, but he was still a grand master, and had to look up to her. How could he break her regal amnesia and win her heart back? Thinking about this, he felt a sense of urgency. He could not wait to find the path of an enlightened master and embark on the path of pursuit. Unfortunately, it was useless to be anxious now. 3 knights galloped over, and the horses suddenly stopped. Chuli looked at the 3 knights. One of them was an elder in a purple robe, while the other 2 middle-aged men were clad in iron armor that shone brightly under the sun. The elder in the purple robe had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He had the cultivation level of a grandmaster, and his eyes were bright as if they could see through one's heart. "Princes," the elder in the purple robe said in a deep voice. The princes gathered around and fist saluted. The ladies did not move and continued talking. Lung Xiao and Lung Qing came to Chuli's side. Lung Qing faintly said, "Prince Bao, the emperor's younger brother. They share the same mother." Chuli nodded. Prince Bao's cultivation level was high. He must have obtained spirit medicine from the imperial house and a mystical technique. His aura was like the mountains and the sea, but it was hidden deep within. It was hard for outsiders to detect. If Chuli did not use the heavenly demonic power, he would not be his opponent. This year's 12 hunting ceremonies are hosted by Prince Bao. Lung Qing said, "Prince Bao is impartial. No one dares to play favoritism." Lung Xiao smiled happily. Lung Tao and the rest are going to be in trouble again. How delightful. Chuli said, "Who wins the most in every hunting ceremony?" "The princes almost never win." Lung Qing faintly said, "They are sent here to be beaten because they know the dangers of war. If they really win, how would the soldiers feel?" "Not even once?" Chuli asked. Lung Qing said, "There was once. Lung Feng set up an ambush and barely won." Chuli nodded. "Looks like this Prince Feng has some ability to lead troops. He was just lucky." Lung Qing sneered. The soldiers were too careless and looked down on Lung Feng and the rest. That's why he succeeded. Since then, they never won a single battle and were beaten up badly. These soldiers are really ruthless. On the battlefield, they don't care if they're the princes or not. Moreover, everyone wears armor and covers their faces. They also split the princes into a few teams to compete with each other, Lung Qing said. "How many teams?" Chuli asked. "Usually 5 teams, Lung Qing said. "Sometimes it's 3 teams. It depends on Prince Bao's temporary ideas." Lung Xiao could not interrupt. She smiled. "Big sister is very interested in these." Chuli raised his eyebrows. "Miss Qing likes to study military strategies." "I'm just looking around," Lung Qing said coldly. Chuli did not know that Lung Qing had such a hobby. No wonder she suddenly came over to talk to him. "I'm a girl. I like military strategies just to relieve my boredom," Lung Qing said. Chuli nodded. Chapter 406. Chuli said, "The battlefield is indeed not suitable for women, but the use of military strategy is very broad. It's not only on the battlefield, it can also be used during normal times." Lung Qing said faintly, "It's useless everywhere because she's a woman." Chuli smiled and said nothing. Lung Xiao said, "How is it useless?" "I heard that Lu Yurong is in charge of the Ren public house. She commanded the protectors of the High Duke's public house to defeat the martial arts masters. She's amazing. Aren't you still at a disadvantage in the hands of the head chief?" Lung Qing said. Chuli shook his head and smiled. "Miss Qing, don't listen to the rumors outside. They are all exaggerated. In fact, Lu Yurong didn't suffer much." "That's right." Lung Xiao hurriedly nodded and said, "Before the head chief came out, Lu Yurong was victorious in every battle and had never been defeated." "Big sister, you have a meticulous mind. If you could command the troops, you would definitely be victorious in every battle." Chuli laughed. Lung Xiao's words were too unbelievable. He smiled and said, "Miss Qing, actually, the key to using military strategy is not the strategy, but the human heart. Only by being able to see through the human heart can one be able to use strategy properly. If one cannot see through the human heart, no matter how brilliant the strategy is, it will be useless." Is Lu Yurong capable of that? Lung Qing asked. Chu Li said, Miss Qing, have you noticed Lu Yurong's behavior? Yes. Lung Qing nodded slowly. She had been studying military strategies and books all this while. Among the women of the great Ji dynasty, Lu Yurong was the best at strategizing. She could suppress men, and no one could stop her. Later, with the appearance of Chu Li, she barely managed to suppress Lu Yurong's limelight. Chu Li said, I don't know if you can tell that Lu Yurong can read other people's minds. See through other people's thoughts? Lung Qing frowned. Chu Li said, she can see down to the smallest detail and see straight into people's hearts. Lu Yurong has this ability. She can read people's minds through their words and actions. Although it's not foolproof, it's not far from the truth. This is the basis of wisdom. I see. Lung Qing looked into the distance thoughtfully. Lu Yurong was talking to Princess Lu in a low voice, smiling coldly. Two middle-aged knights were guarding downstairs while Prince Bao climbed up the tall building alone. Chu Li sized up the tall building. It was about 30 meters tall and covered an area of more than 100 square meters. Its style was simple and unadorned, and most of it was built with bluestone. It had experienced countless years of wind and rain, and was modeled with the vicissitudes of life. Prince Bao went up the stairs and held onto the railing. His purple robe fluttered in the wind as he looked down at the crowd. He raised his voice and said, I won't say much about the rules of the hunting ceremony. I just want to warn you. Prince Bao's voice rang clearly in everyone's ears. This is a battlefield. You're surrounded by your comrades, and you're facing your enemies. There's only one thing you need to do: protect your comrades and destroy your enemies. This time, you'll be divided into 5 teams. Whoever wins in the end will be marked as a middle-ranked army. Put on your armor. Groups of soldiers and princes gathered together and entered a dense forest not far away. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and watched as they entered the dense forest. First, each of them received a set of armor. After putting it on, they put down their iron helmets and covered their faces. Then, they began to draw a waist tag from a box. Those who drew a waist token of the same color would have their arms tied with a cloth of the same color. Soon, the 5 teams were separated. After putting on their armor and riding on their horses, even those who were close to them would not be able to recognize each other. The princes and the soldiers were one. Even those with sharp eyes could see it, but at this time, they could not care less about the identity of the other party. The princes would not be able to recognize them either. There was no need to show mercy at all. A middle-ranked army was not something that could be found all the time. Red team, this is your marching map. Blue team, this is your... All right, each of you set off according to the marching map. There's food, horse feed, and water over there. The rest is up to you. A middle-aged man's voice shouted. The thundering sound of hooves could be heard. Groups of neatly armored cavalrymen slowly came out of the dense forest. The ladies looked at them in awe. Under the sunlight, their armor shone brightly. The iron helmets covered their faces, but it made them look even more stern and ferocious. The smell of iron and blood from the war hit them in the face. They seemed to be showing off as they rode their horses slowly past the ladies. A group of 20 people quickly disappeared into the grassland far away. Wow, Lung Qiu exclaimed. Lung Qing also stared at them without blinking until they disappeared from her sight. Her eyes were shining. Chu Li looked at one of the cavalrymen thoughtfully. Lung Qiu turned to look at him. Head chief, impressive, right? They are quite impressive. Chu Li smiled. Are they all elites from the frontier? Of course. They all have military merits. I heard that they have killed at least 2 Li dynasty's cavalrymen. They are very powerful. Lung Qiu smiled. Chu Li nodded. Head chief, what did you see? Lung Qing asked. Her eyes were sharp enough to see that Chu Li's expression was strange. Chu Li frowned. One of the cavalrymen is not very appropriate. Inappropriate. Lung Qing was startled and asked in surprise, What do you mean inappropriate? Chu Li did not say a word. He replayed the actions of the cavalrymen in his mind. Head chief, what do you mean? Lung Qing frowned. Chu Li pondered. Logically, this shouldn't have happened. Miss Qing, Go to Prince Bao and tell him. It's better to be prepared. What is it? Lung Qing stared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li said, there might be a spy in the dark. A spy? Lung Qing was stunned. She shook her head. Impossible. These elite soldiers had gone through many rounds of checks to ensure that every one of them had a clean background. There was nothing suspicious about them. Otherwise, they would not have been sent to Fairy's capital and fought with the imperial princes. Chu Li smiled. I think it's impossible too, but I trust my own eyes more. Whether it's true or not, I'll tell Prince Bao. If anything happens, it won't be good. Prince Bao won't believe it. He'll definitely scold you. He'll say that you want to be in the limelight. Lung Qing shook her head. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Even if I get scolded, it's better than saying nothing. Yes, sister. Just tell him. The head chief won't make a mistake. Lung Xiao nodded. Lung Qing stared at her sister and sighed helplessly. All right, I'll go crazy with you for once. Your reputation as the head chief Chu is finally out. Chu Li smiled. Lung Qing did not ride her horse. She lifted her dress and walked to the front of the towering building. Two middle-aged cavalrymen stood in front of the building quietly. Lung Qing closed fist saluted. She reported that she had something important to tell Prince Bao. The two cavalrymen opened the way for her to go upstairs. Her actions attracted the attention of the ladies. Lu Yurong squinted her eyes. She looked at Lung Qing and then at Chu Li. She had a feeling that Lung Qing's actions were related to Chu Li. Lung Qing carefully stepped on the stairs and went upstairs. Chapter 407. Prince Bao's back was facing her as he looked at the cavalryman from afar. His purple robe was fluttering in the wind. Standing here, his field of vision suddenly widened. The entire grassland was in front of him, and he could clearly see that the cavalrymen had split into 5 groups, each rushing in a different direction at an extremely fast speed. You're the eldest daughter of King An's family? Prince Bao turned his head around, his eyes shining as if he could see through her heart. Lung Qing greets Imperial Granduncle. Lung Qing curtsied. Prince Bao waved his hand. What do you want to say? Grand Uncle, the head chief of my residence, said that there is a traitor in the cavalry. Lung Qing said calmly. Contrary to her imagination, Prince Bao's expression was calm when he heard this. Oh, there's a traitor? How can he be so sure that there's a traitor? Lung Qing shook her head. Little girl, what do you think? Prince Bao smiled. His tone was kind, not as harsh as the rumors said. However, Lung Qing did not relax. She said slowly, I don't think it's possible. Everyone here has to go through many layers of checks before they can enter. With so many layers of checks, it's impossible for a spy to sneak in. If there really is a traitor among us, then we have to be careful. Prince Bao shook his head and laughed. These elites are going to enter the palace to meet the emperor. What will happen if they go crazy when they meet the emperor? How many heads will roll on the ground? Yes. Lung Qing was starting to believe Chu Li. The head chief was meticulous. How could he not think of this? He even decided to tell Prince Bao about it. It was obvious that it was very likely to be true. Prince Bao sighed. Your head chief is called Chu Li, right? Imperial Granduncle also knows about the head chief. Of course I have. Prince Bao smiled and said, the youngest rank one, how could I not know? The public house really dares to mess around. High Duke Xiao is an isolated cultivation, and the young master of the Xiao clan is also a powerful figure. He actually dares to confer a first rank. Granduncle, what about the traitor? Lung Qing asked hesitantly. Prince Bao said, let's do it this way. Call Chu Li over and ask him about it. We can't underestimate the youngest rank one. Who knows, he might really have some amazing discoveries. Keep it quiet and don't make it public. Yes. Lung Qing nodded. Prince Bao said, this matter cannot be made public. Girl, you know the severity of this matter. Yes, Granduncle, I understand. Lung Qing said softly. Go. Prince Bao waved his hand. Lung Qing retreated cautiously. Even though Prince Bao was amiable, she still felt a layer of cold sweat on her back. Standing in front of him, she could not help but feel nervous. She approached Chu Li and said a few words to him. Then, She looked at him worriedly. If it was a false alarm, Chu Li would definitely suffer. Chu Li strode to the front of the building and climbed up. All the girls saw this and discussed in low voices, not knowing what was going on. Lu Yurong frowned. While talking to Lung Ying, she looked up at the tall building. Prince Bao stood in front of the railing with his hands behind his back. His purple robe fluttered in the wind as he stood with his back facing Chu Li. His aura was like the mountains and the seas as it pressed down on Chu Li. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and became clear-headed. He ignored the oppressive aura and gave a fist salute. Chu Li greets Prince Bao. I've heard a lot about you. When Prince Bao turned his head around, his immense force vanished without a trace. It seemed like it was just Chu Li's imagination. I wouldn't dare. Chu Li gave a fist salute and smiled. Prince Bao asked in a deep voice, You're saying that there's a traitor in the cavalry? Chu Li smiled. On the surface, Prince Bao looked calm, as if he was not anxious at all. However, Chu Li could see that Prince Bao was the complete opposite. This matter involved too many people. If it was true, there would be many officials who would fall. Even as Prince Bao, he could not help but feel afraid when he thought about it. If I'm not wrong, there's a traitor? Prince Bao frowned. What evidence do you have? These people were selected through many rounds of selection. It's almost impossible for there to be a traitor. Chu Li said, Prince Bao, do you know what I do in the High Duke's public house? Gloryville Courtyard? I heard that you're in charge of finding traitors. Prince Bao said slowly. Chu Li nodded. Although I'm young, I'm quite experienced in finding traitors. I don't rely on evidence, but my intuition. If I'm not wrong, this spy should be a grandmaster. Impossible, Prince Bao said in a deep voice. Chu Li smiled. Why is it impossible? If it's a grandmaster from another dimension entering the fairy's capital, he'll definitely be discovered by the Imperial House protectors and be monitored. But what if he can hide his cultivation level? An innate master can still hide, but a grandmaster is like a candle in the night. How can he hide? Prince Bao shook his head and laughed. The techniques of hiding in the martial arts world are not reliable. They won't be able to hide from the masters of the fairy's capital. The Imperial House has a special detection technique. Chu Li said, this master can hide from them. As for the method, you'll have to ask him. That's all I have to say. It's up to you whether you believe me or not, Your Royal Highness. Prince Bao slapped the railing and weighed the pros and cons. If something went wrong during the hunting ceremony, it would shake the Imperial House and the Imperial Court. It was not a small matter. If he mobilized a large number of people and it turned out to be a false alarm, he would be ridiculed by others. After a while, Prince Bao said slowly, although it's suspicious of us mobilizing a large number of people, there's always a contingency. We can't be too careful. Which one is it? A cavalryman from the Red Army, Chu Li said. Prince Bao stared at him deeply. Chu Li smiled. All right, I'll believe you this time. I hope that you, the youngest first rank, won't let me down. Prince Bao said in a deep voice. Chu Li smiled. I won't let you down, Your Royal Highness. Prince Bao nodded and said in a deep voice, Call the red team back. Yes. A middle-aged cavalryman downstairs replied. The middle-aged cavalryman leaped onto his horse and urged the horse to gallop away. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone was discussing. Lung Qing was summoned to the pagoda. Lu Yurong, Consort Lu, and Lung Ying followed. Qing Er, what did you say to Prince Bao? Why did you summon the head chief over? Song Luying frowned. Lung Qing looked around and shook her head. You little girl, hurry up and tell me. Song Luying said impatiently. Lung Qing said faintly, Mother, I can't say. You? Song Luying frowned. Xuanning Yu smiled. This must be Prince Bao's order, right? Lung Qing nodded. Lu Yurong smiled and said, Let me guess, Chu Li must have noticed something wrong? Lung Qing looked at her with her bright eyes and sighed. Chu Li was right. Lu Yurong's observation was really sharp. Lu Yurong said, This problem must be serious, so it's better not to make it public. What's Chu Li's best at? What is it? Lung Ying asked curiously. Lu Yurong smiled. Young Ying, do you know what Chu Li did in the High Duke's public house? I don't know. Lung Ying shook her head. Although she was curious about this head Chief Chu, she did not worship him. She did not want to understand him in detail. Lu Yurong said, he was the chief of the Gloriesville Courtyard. The Gloriesville Courtyard is where the High Duke's public house specializes in finding traitors. So, you know what Chu Li is best at? Catching traitors? Lung Ying said. Lu Yurong nodded. If that's the case, Chu Li found out that there's a traitor among the elite soldiers? Her clear eyes fell on Lung Qing's face. Lung Qing pursed her red lips and did not say a word. Chapter 408. P.S. The 8th Guild has been born. Its leader is Wind Dancer, 5638. That's impossible. Princess Lu shook her head. Everyone looked at her. A smile appeared on Princess Lu's dignified and beautiful face. From what I know, these elite cavalries have to go through 3 layers of checks before they enter Luoyang. The general's residence, the Ministry of War, and the secret guardians of the Imperial House. If there is any ambiguity in their background, they will not appear in Luoyang. Realization dawned on all the women. While they knew that it would be difficult for the cavalry to enter Luoyang and that they would have to go through layers of checks, they did not know what they had to go through. Now that Consort Lu mentioned it, they finally understood. Thinking about it, they felt that the security was so tight that spies would not be able to get in. The general's residence, the Ministry of War, and even the secret guardians of the Imperial House were all elites. No matter how powerful the spy was, they would not be able to hide it from these smart people. Lu Yurong's words would not hold water. Auntie, I don't know how that traitor got in, Lu Yurong said with a smile, but I know what Chu Li is capable of. All of my spies in the public house have been wiped out by him. Many of them were idlers that were never used at all. They did not show any signs at all, but he removed them all. Chu Li has such abilities? Consort Lu was surprised. She was not an ignorant young lady from a wealthy family, so she was quite knowledgeable about these matters. These idlers, who had never been used before, had never acted suspiciously and would not arouse suspicion. She also knew Lu Yurong's capabilities. These informants would only communicate through a single line. They did not know who their accomplices were, yet they were still taken out. It could only be said that Chu Li really had amazing capabilities. Lu Yurong smiled at Lung Qing. How'd he know? Lung Qing shook his head. Lu Yurong smiled and said, whether it's true or not, we'll know soon enough. As he spoke, a group of cavalrymen with red strips of cloth tied around their arms thundered over. They stopped at the bottom of the stairs and remained motionless, as if they were frozen in place. There were 22 men in this group of cavalrymen. As they galloped, they had the momentum of a magnificent army. They sat motionless on their horses, and the horses didn't move either, emitting an indescribable pressure. The armor gleamed coldly under the sunlight, and the helmet covered its face, making it look ferocious and terrifying, as if it was a monster harvesting human lives. Let's go down and have a look, Prince Bao said. Chu Li asked, Your Royal Highness, aren't you afraid of causing a mutiny? As long as the evidence is conclusive, what can they say? Prince Bao shook his head and said, If we summon them alone, we'll attract a lot of suspicion. It's better to reveal everything in front of everyone. All right, Chu Li nodded. Prince Bao's thoughts were meticulous, and he was cautious with every step he took. He did not leave any evidence for others to use against him. This was not the style of a prince. He gave off a feeling of treading on thin ice. It seemed like it wasn't easy for him to become a prince. It wasn't as glorious as others thought it was. The two of them went downstairs and stood in front of the 22 knights. The gazes of the 22 knights pierced through their armors and landed on the two of them, their bodies emitting a baleful aura. Prince Bao turned to look at Chu Li. Which one? Chu Li pointed. Prince Bao sized up the knight that Chu Li had pointed out. He was tall and sturdy, standing out from the 22 knights. With a single glance, he could be recognized. The baleful aura on his body was almost tangible. He had killed many people and made many contributions. Prince Bao furrowed his brows. Logically speaking, this kind of person was not suitable to be a traitor. He was too conspicuous. His every move would be under the watchful eyes of others. If he made any inappropriate movements, people would notice. Moreover, when he saw this person's aura, he had a good impression of him. Such an awe-inspiring, heroic spirit made people feel respect for him. Is it really him? Prince Bao asked in a low voice. Chu Li nodded slowly. Everyone stared at the two of them. They did not know what they were talking about. All right, if that's the case, I'll believe you this time. Prince Bao turned and pointed at the tall knight. You, step forward. The tall knight tapped his heels lightly. The horse that he was riding on took a step forward and stopped in front of the two of them. Prince Bao said, Get off the horse and take off your helmet. The tall knight leaped off the horse lightly and took off his helmet, revealing a rough face and a heroic spirit. He took off his helmet and hung it on the saddle. He gave a fist salute. Breaking Wind Battalion's Field Officer Zhou Zhixiong greets Your Royal Highness. Prince Bao sized up Zhou Zhixiong. No matter how he looked at him, he did not look like a traitor. He liked Zhou Zhixiong at first glance. Zhou Zhixiong had a heroic spirit and was a natural leader. With proper training, he would become a valiant general. Chu Li said, You're from Li Dynasty, right? Zhou Zhixiong was stunned. He frowned and stared at Chu Li in dissatisfaction. May I know where you're from? I was born in the Ji Dynasty's Green Mountain Road and the Green Mountain Town. Oh, are you really from the Green Mountain Town? Chu Li smiled. Zhou Zhixiong stared at Chu Li coldly and turned to look at Prince Bao. Your Royal Highness, what is this brother's intention? I'm from the Green Mountain Town. Why did this brother say that I'm from the Li Dynasty? This is Chu Li, the head chief of the imperial residence of King In. Logically speaking, you've passed through many layers of checks. There should be no problem with your identity. However, Head Chief Chu feels that you're a little suspicious. He wants to ask a few questions. Just answer him properly. Prince Bao smiled. Zhou Zhixiong stared at him and scoffed angrily. What enmity does Head Chief Chu have with me? Why are you framing me? He was already frightening. When he stared at him, his aura became even more imposing. He was like a ferocious beast pouncing on Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Since you're from the Green Mountain Town, have you seen Lady Lu from the Ren Public House? Of course, Zhou Zhixiong replied. Chu Li asked, Then can you recognize which one is Lady Lu? He pointed at the pagoda in the distance. The ladies were sitting inside and looking at them. Zhou Zhixiong's mind raced. This could very well be a trap. Why would Lady Lu come to such an occasion? Lady Lu was the lady of the Ren Public House. All the ladies here were from the imperial residence. It did not match with Lu Yuron's identity. However, what if there was something that he did not know? Lu Yuron might really be here. Zhou Zhixiong shook his head. Lady Lu always covers her face when she leaves the imperial residence. I've never seen her face. Prince Bao smiled. Then can you recognize her from the back? Your Royal Highness, I don't have that kind of eyesight. I can't tell which one is Lady Lu from the back. Zhou Zhixiong said in a low voice. That's understandable. Prince Bao nodded and looked at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Zhou Zhixiong's brain was very quick. He had never seen Lu Yuron before. Yet, he could find an excuse to reject her. He was indeed from the Green Mountain Town. Chu Li's question was to show weakness. He could only see that there was something wrong with Zhou Zhixiong. Whether there was something wrong with him, how it happened, how to prevent it, and where the loopholes were. These were things that could not be interrogated from Zhou Zhixiong. In that case, he had to worm his way out of him bit by bit. He had to see through his thoughts and obtain more information. Chief Chu, I'd like to ask you, what kind of grudge do we have against each other? Zhou Zhixiong scoffed. All of us risked our lives on the battlefield. We barely made it out alive. It was not easy for us to achieve military merits and enter the fairy's capital. Yet, we have to be suspected? Could it be that the Li Dynasty's cavalrymen that I killed were fake? Could it be that my military merits were fake? All of my hard work has to be written off just because of a little suspicion from the head chief. I've become a traitor just because of your words? He turned to look at the cavalrymen. Brothers, are we soldiers so untrustworthy that we have to guard against us like thieves? That's right. That's right. The cavalrymen scoffed in a low voice. Zhou Zhixiong had high prestige among the crowd. He had achieved many military merits. Seeing that he was being treated like this, the cavalrymen sympathized with him. They could not help but feel angry and stared at Chu Li with dissatisfaction. Head Chief Chu, what evidence do you have? You don't have any evidence. You're just saying that I'm a traitor. This is too much. One of the cavalrymen scoffed. Chapter 409. Chu Li smiled. Does Crown Prince Tao know this field, Officer Zhou? Lung Tao scoffed. I'm not familiar with this field, Officer Zhou, but I can't just watch you falsely accuse a good person. So what if he's the head chief? He needs evidence. That's good, Chu Li said. If Crown Prince Tao is really familiar with Field Officer Zhou, then it'll be troublesome. Field Officer Zhou, how about this? We won't investigate your background. Oomph. Zhou Zhixiong said coldly. Then I'll have to thank Head Chief Chu for admitting that I'm from the Great Ji Dynasty. Chu Li said, Field Officer Zhou has made many contributions too. I really admire those who have made contributions on the battlefield. Huh. Zhou Zhixiong gave him a sidelong glance. I couldn't tell. Chu Li shook his head. It's because I admire these meritorious elites that I can't tolerate anyone betraying them. Head Chief Chu, I'd like to ask, what do you dislike about me that makes you insist that I'm a traitor? Zhou Zhixiong frowned. We have no grievances in the past and no grudges recently, right? Chu Li said, we have no grievances in the past and no grudges recently. Why do I have to make things difficult for you and not others? It's because I'm too eye-catching. Zhou Zhixiong scoffed. Using me to show off your power as the head chief? To let us know that no matter how great our contributions are outside, we have to be honest in the fairy's capital. Chu Li laughed. That's interesting. The fairy's capital is full of hidden talents. If you're really capable, you can do whatever you want. Even if you talk back to His Royal Highness, no one will punish you. Oomph, we wouldn't dare. Zhou Zhixiong sneered. How would a lowly soldier have the guts? Even if you behave well, you'll still be bullied. Out of 10 contributions, we'll deduct 8 points. We'll be grateful if you're left with 2 points. His words made the cavalrymen behind him look colder. They looked at Chu Li with hostility. Chu Li said, Field Officer Zhou, I admire your eloquence. You're also brave in battle. It's a shame that you can't be used by the Great Ji Dynasty. What a shame, what a shame. Shut up, Zhou Zhixiong shouted. Chu Li, I swear I'll kill you. Chu Li smiled at him. All the girls in the gazebo were staring at them. The two of them were speaking in a rather loud voice, and the gentle breeze carried their words over. He's from Qingshan City, Lu Yurong said. Cousin, do you know him? Lung Ying hurriedly asked. Lu Yurong nodded. Yes, you know him? Lung Ying said in surprise. So he's not a traitor? Lu Yurong said, he can be considered talented. He was promoted to commandant at such a young age. It's rare to see someone like that in Green Mountain City. I've seen him with my own eyes and investigated him. Lung Ying said, since he's from the Ji Dynasty, he can't be a traitor, right? Lung Qing and Lung Qiu frowned. Song Luiying and Xuaningyu looked at Xiao Shi worriedly. If he were to make a mistake and make a big deal out of it, Chu Li would be in big trouble. He would definitely provoke the wrath of these cavalrymen who had performed meritorious deeds. They might even demand an explanation and vent all the dissatisfaction they had accumulated over the years on Chu Li. In order to appease the anger of these elite soldiers, the imperial court might have to punish Chu Li. Xiao Shi smiled faintly. This Chu Li was stirring up trouble again. Xue Ling and Yang Su also looked calm. The three women knew Chu Li's ability to get rid of traitors. He's from the Ji Dynasty, but it's hard to say if he's a traitor. Lu Yurong shook her head. Yang Ying, traitors aren't all from the Li Dynasty. I think this Commandant Zhou is a hero. How does he look like a traitor? Lung Ying was unconvinced. One look, and you can tell he's a man of steel. He's open and above board. He's broad-minded. Lu Yurong burst into laughter. She pursed her lips and smiled. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Isn't it said that a book is born from its cover? Lung Ying said. If a bad person has a malicious heart, it will naturally show on their face. One look, and you can tell. That might not be true. Lu Yurong smiled. Anyway, I think this Commandant Zhou is a hero. He's not a traitor. Lung Ying scoffed. She turned to look at Lung Qiu and Lung Qing. Sister Qiu, Sister Qing, do you think this Commandant Zhou is a hero? Both of them looked hesitant. Lung Ying smiled proudly at Lu Yurong. Sister Qiu and Sister Qing think the same as me. You guys... Lu Yurong shook her head and smiled. If you look at people like that, you'll suffer in the future. Watch carefully. Zhou Zhixiong's voice was heard again. It was overbearing. He said loudly, Head Chief Chu, I didn't think that there's someone as despicable as you in the Ji dynasty. We're fighting with our lives on the battlefield, but we still have to guard against despicable people like you. You're not giving us soldiers a way out. That's right. That's right. The cavalrymen stared at Chu Li agitatedly. They were ready to rush over and teach him a lesson. In their eyes, Chu Li was a despicable person. He was jealous of the virtuous and capable. He framed them, the heroes of the battlefield. How despicable! Chu Li calmly faced everyone's angry stares. He sized them up one by one. Surname Chu, what evidence do you have? If you don't, then get lost. We still have to go and earn some merit. Lung Tao's voice was heard again. Chu Li ignored Lung Tao. He said slowly, My fellow soldiers, I have a question. Everyone stared at him coldly without saying a word. Chu Li said, Do you know about the Holy Church of Light? Everyone's expression changed slightly under their helmets. Chu Li smiled. The Holy Church of Light believes in Virokana. It's a super-ranked sect in the Li dynasty. The followers of the church have vowed to turn themselves into the sun in this dark world. They will shine brightly and relieve the suffering of all living beings. Why are you talking about the Holy Church of Light again? We're talking about traitors, Lung Tao said unhappily. Chu Li said, Among the soldiers, is there anyone who believes in this church? No one said a word. Chu Li sighed. Field Officer Zhou, what about you? Do you believe in the Holy Church of Light? Surname Chu, you're running out of excuses, aren't you? Zhou Zhixiong said coldly. You're rambling on and on. You still haven't explained why you're framing me. This time it's me. What about next time? Are you going to randomly frame someone else because you're in a bad mood? Chu Li smiled. Seems like Field Officer Zhou believes in the Holy Church of Light. There are many believers in the Ji dynasty, right? Zhou Zhixiong sneered and said nothing. Chu Li said, Which believer helped you? Surname Chu, you're a despicable person. I don't know anything about the Holy Church of Light. Zhou Zhixiong scoffed. That's easy. I'll draw a logo of the Holy Church of Light. You can just step on it. Chu Li nodded. I'll step on it then. You're really vicious. Not only did you frame me as a traitor, you're also a follower of the Holy Church of Light. Zhou Zhixiong scoffed. Chu Li turned his head and said, Your Royal Highness, please give me a brush and ink. Prince Bao waved his hand. A middle-aged knight went upstairs and quickly brought a table down. There were brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the table. The middle-aged knight ground the ink himself. Chapter 410. Chu Li looked at the white paper and let go of it. The white paper fluttered to Zhou Zhixiong's feet, and he could step on it with just one step. Commandant Zhou, please. Chu Li stretched out his hand and said with a straight face, If Field Officer Zhou steps on it, I will immediately kowtow to Field Officer Zhou and apologize. Everyone was stunned. They looked at Chu Li, then at Zhou Zhixiong. They did not expect Chu Li to have the guts to say such a thing. He wanted to kowtow and apologize. A man's knees were gold. Even if he saw the emperor, he could only bow to the heavens, the earth, and his parents. Apart from that, he could not kneel to anyone else. Chu Li's words had forced him into a corner. If Chu Li really knelt down, he would become a laughingstock. They stared at Zhou Zhixiong. After a long while, Zhou Zhixiong did not move. They were secretly anxious. This was a good opportunity to ruthlessly slap him in the face and make him kneel. Why was Commandant Zhou hesitating? Chu Li said, Field Officer Zhou, you only need to step on it lightly, and I'll kowtow to you. I won't go back on my words in front of everyone. Zhou Zhixiong lowered his head and stared at the painting. This painting was vivid and lifelike. The radiant sun could not be more lifelike. He could not draw it like this. All he had to do was step on Chu Li lightly, and he would be able to force him to kneel, prove his innocence, and at the same time, give himself a way out. The endless temptation made him step on it. However, he was unable to move his feet. Chu Li looked at him quietly and said in a low voice, "Field Officer Zhou, the Holy Church of Light is a sect of the Li dynasty. You believe in the Holy Church of Light, so I don't have to say anything more, right? What a pity, you had a bright future." He shook his head as he spoke. Zhou Zhixiong fiercely raised his head and glared at him, his eyes burning like a raging fire. "Surnamed Chu, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a dagger from his bosom and fiercely stabbed it into his left chest. Then he slowly fell down, his body pressing down on the white paper. "Commandant Zhou!" Everyone exclaimed. They were shocked. They didn't expect Zhou Zhixiong to directly pull out his sword and commit suicide. The change was sudden and tragic, and they were so shocked that they became absent-minded. Such a heroic figure didn't die on the battlefield, but in the immortals' capital. Moreover, he committed suicide. A nameless rage burned in their chests, as if it wanted to burn them up. Prince Bao looked at Chu Li. Chu Li sighed and looked down at Zhou Zhixiong. "Surnamed Chu, you're ruthless enough," Lung Tao shouted angrily. "You forced an elite soldier to his death." Everyone's eyes were blazing like torches. Just a little provocation, and they would pounce on him. Chu Li calmly looked at the crowd and asked, "Is there anyone else who believes in the Holy Church of Light?" Lung Tao roared, "You're a traitor just because you believe in the Holy Church of Light. You've gone too far." Chu Li glanced at him. He shook his head inwardly. This reckless brat doesn't know how serious this matter is. Lung Tao glared at him, unwilling to be outdone. He abruptly pushed his helmet up and revealed his face. "Chu Li, tell me clearly, why are you a traitor just because you believe in the Holy Church of Light?" Just because of this Holy Church of Light, they forced Field Officer Zhou to his death? How many cavalrymen of the Li dynasty have he killed? How dare you suspect that he's a mole of the Li dynasty? Chu Li, you're too vicious. The cavalrymen gritted their teeth and clenched their fists. They glared at Chu Li and were about to attack. Chu Li calmly asked, "Do you think he's dead?" A stab to the heart, and he's still not dead? Chu Li, I didn't expect you to be such a despicable person. I must have been blind to think that you're a young talent. Puffed. Scoffed Lung Tao. Chu Li suddenly waved his hand. Slap. A crisp sound was heard. Lung Tao's helmet flew off, and a palm print instantly appeared on his face. It was as red as blood. Idiot. Chu Li looked at him in annoyance. He turned his head and calmly looked at the cavalrymen who were about to charge at him. Lung Tao did not want to seek justice. He wanted to take the opportunity to incite the crowd to attack Chu Li. Oomph. Prince Bao scoffed and glanced at them coldly. "How dare you all?" His scoff was like a clap of thunder that rang in the ears of the cavalrymen. It shocked them so much that their minds went blank and their bodies went numb. Chu Li said, "If I'm not mistaken, Field Officer Zhou's heart is on the right side, so the stab wasn't fatal." "Oh," Prince Bao smiled. "Is there such a thing?" He waved his hand, and a middle-aged cavalryman in front of the building was about to step forward. He did not seem to care about Chu Li slapping Lung Tao as if he did not see it. Chu Li quickly stretched out his hand. "Wait," Prince Bao said, "what's wrong?" Chu Li sighed. "Your Royal Highness, let's ask them to step back first." "We won't step back. We must see if it's true or not. We can't be fooled by you." Lung Tao covered his face and roared. Chu Li said, "Zhou Zhixiong is a grandmaster. Are you really not going to step back?" "Stop joking." Lung Tao stared at him with hatred and sneered. "If he is a grandmaster, I am an enlightened master. That's why I said you're stupid." Chu Li shook his head. Prince Bao waved his hand. "All of you step back 10 feet. The cavalryman did not move. Prince Bao scoffed. "Why? My words don't work anymore?" "Yes." The cavalryman stepped back 30 meters. Chu Li said, "Zhou Zhixiong, stop pretending to be dead. Whether you can escape or not will depend on your true abilities. Truly. Zhou Zhixiong suddenly stood up. There was a dagger in his right chest. He pulled out the dagger himself. Only a trace of blood flowed out. Not only did he not look like he was injured, but he was also in high spirits. He looked more heroic, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword. He kept the dagger in his chest and said solemnly, "Chu, how did you know that I am a disciple of the Holy Church?" Chu Li said, "I guessed. I was just testing you. I didn't expect my guess to be right. The Holy Church of Light has quite a number of followers in the fairies' capital, right? You can ask others on the way to the underworld. I'm going to kill you," Zhou Zhixiong said calmly. Chu Li must be killed. Otherwise, he would be a huge threat to the Holy Church. First, he faked his death. Then he had the void concealment divine technique. Either one of them was a way to turn the situation around. However, Chu Li easily broke through it without any effort. With him around, the disciples of the Holy Church would be in danger. He must be eliminated. Chu Li smiled. "I really want to know how you managed to hide your cultivation level," Zhou Zhixiong said calmly. "The Holy Church of Light has countless divine skills. It's just a small trick." As expected, the Holy Church of Light has such a heart technique. If that's the case, there are quite a number of masters from the Holy Church of Light hiding in the fairies' capital. "So what?" Zhou Zhixiong said. "Can you recognize them one by one? They might be someone you know, or even your family. The disciples of the Holy Church are everywhere. We can never kill them all." As soon as he said that, he charged at Chu Li and swung his fist. "I shall eliminate you, demon, on behalf of the disciples of the Holy Church." Chu Li waved his hand, and the white paper on the ground floated into his hand. He avoided Zhou Zhixiong's fist force and glided backward. "Your Royal Highness." Prince Bao scoffed angrily. "Something's wrong." He took a step forward and stood in front of Zhou Zhixiong. He gently struck him with his palm. Bam! Zhou Zhixiong flew 10 feet away and turned to leave. Trying to escape, Prince Bao sneered and struck him with his palm again. Bam! Zhou Zhixiong, who was 10 feet away, flew away as if he was hit by a huge wooden block. Prince Bao took another step forward and stood in front of him. He lightly struck him again. Woo! Zhou Zhixiong fiercely struck his fist. The fist force produced a strange whistling sound. Bam! Zhou Zhixiong flew away again. Suddenly, he flashed in the air and disappeared. Prince Bao frowned. He squinted his eyes and looked around. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.